Tech. All right, what's up, you homunculus fucks? Homunculus. Dan will teach us how to say it. Dan Olson is way smarter than everyone in this chat ever will be. So don't try to hang with Dan. You like this shirt, resting bitch face champion? I feel like it works for me. My nose is always fucking shiny on Friday because I take a shower before I get on this live stream. So when you watch this screen, you don't think to yourself, man, I can only imagine what the smell of that room must be, much like we experienced last week with Kikassia. Any scene with any of the nerds in there, yeah, you just knew that was a morning breath and like body odor was the smell of any scene in Kikassia. Even the ones including the chicks, because I don't know, that kind of nerdy lack of hygiene, I feel like just transcends gender at that point. Anyway, welcome to this Friday stream. Gonna be reviewing a video that is like not super smelled like GameStop. Yeah. We're gonna be we are all going to be watching this man Dan Olson, who is a BreadTuber, and for those of you who don't know, those are they're the real intellectual types, the left-leaning intellectual progressives who've figured out how to solve all the world's problems. If not for people just stopping what they were doing and listening to that BreadTuber and whatever. He's in the Nebula, Lindsay Ellis kind of that sphere, that orbit of people. And look, I'm not saying that like I'm not left-leaning. I would definitely say these days it's a lot easier to just say I'm independent than to say I'm affiliated with either one of these fucking dummies on either side here. They've just gotten worse and worse as time has gone on. So to still be like this really hardcore lefty in 2024, I'm just like, man, that's getting harder and harder to defend. This is someone myself who started off as like left wing, when I was in college or whatever, but during the Obama years or whatever, it was easy to be like, yeah, I'm liberal or whatever. But as the policing of speech has gone on and how kind of the word woke, which started off as a thing in the black community, now it's morphed into this pejorative that describes like overly sensitive people. And I will say people have gotten overly sensitive on both sides. And, I usually don't talk about politics on this stream, so stop crying. Anyone in the chat is like, can you just leave politics out of it? Well, this guy is, he's one of those guys. So you got to kind of preface it by talking a little bit about politics. Because this guy's, he's going to be inserting his politics into this video. He is going to rain down on the Cinemassacre Truth and the other communities who have been critical of James. You, if you've ever been critical of James watching this stream, you will be accused of being transphobic, fatphobic. I was like, when he left, because I've seen the video once. I saw it the first time it came out, pretty much when everyone else probably saw it. I didn't do a video on it because I'm not doing a highly edited video on a video about someone who did a video about someone else. But a live stream where I don't have to do fucking any editing, I can drink beer, I can say shit off the top of my head, which is not always the best thing. I'd much rather do a live stream of this stupid thing than, actually do like a edited, put a lot of time into it kind of video. Just to give you a little sneak peek, the next highly edited video that I'm doing is going to be about P. Diddy, so there's that. That's all I'll say about that. But yeah, I watched this video when it first came out, and I thought, wow, this is a needlessly verbose, kind of college professor vibes, but he's not a college professor, so to kind of like act like or give off the vibe that you're this really like very deeply intellectual, deep thinker who kind of understands concepts and explains them in ways that the filthy unwashed masses like ourselves could possibly understand. And that's kind of the public service that he does. It just kind of comes off as like just needlessly douchey, but that might just be how he talks. I don't think it is. He does this cringy bit, I think towards the end of the video, where he tries to impersonate James as the angry video game nerd, and he actually tries to embody that character to show that, see, I can do it too if I needed to, you see, but it just comes off as cringe as fuck and not anywhere near. Like, Frankie from Red Cow does a way better, like, James Rolfe than Dan's cringy attempt to, and, you know, Dan's almost at 1 million subscribers, so it just goes to show you. Talent isn't always reflected in subs, but I don't know. He's done other pieces that I think I enjoyed. I believe I enjoyed his takedown of the Doug Walker's wall video. I think Dan Olson has tried to help a lot of girls, but they won't respond to my text messages. What's up with that? I've got almost 1 million subscribers. Why you leave me on red, Lindsay Ellis? I don't know. If Lindsay Ellis dated Todd in the Shadows, I think Dan Olson might have a chance. I love Todd's channel. It's one of my favorite channels. That was one ugly motherfucker. Like I'm one to talk. I don't know. I'm not bad looking. I'm all right. Anyway, that got off track and weird. Just looking at these chats here. Got a lot of stuff going on. Fuck. I don't know if I have... obviously, I don't have time to read all these, but I appreciate everyone watching already. We're going to have to get into this, and the second thing I want to highlight about the video that we're about to watch is just Dan's needless cinematography in this video. Like, it is so needlessly utilizing these kind of, like, practical video effects, like on-camera depictions of Dan giving his little monologue, like... He'll, like, tape a cell phone to the wall and video the cell phone, and the cell phone's playing video of him talking. Instead of just showing video of him talking like this, for instance, it's got to be, like, an old tape recorder's got to be turned on to make you feel like this is all some analog thing from the 70s. He uses a lot of, for a fucking video analysis about AVGN, I don't really see how all of that shit was, like, needed in there. Oh, yeah, hit the like button, because last time I discouraged people from hitting the like button because we were watching Kickassia, and I just could not in good conscience tell people to hit the like button watching such cringy garbage. And, you know, and yet, even after watching Kickassia, there was still one person in my Discord that was defending the movie. Just, like... I was just giving my counterpoints as to why I thought it was still a horrible movie, because, and you know, I have nothing against this guy. I think he's cool. But he was like, you know, I think it was just, you know, a bunch of kids having fun, and it's like, oh, I'm so tired of that defense. Just a bunch of, they're just having fun, man. You know, like, they weren't trying to be professional. It's like, bro, they all had like YouTube channels. They were all like, Doug Walker himself was trying to be like a film dude, and this, like, anyway, I'm not relitigating that whole fucking nightmare. Yes, my mod, Chicago, will give out the Discord link here and there in the chat, but that will eventually become a Patreon only feature whenever I make my Patreon. So get in while the getting's good, baby, because you see a lot more obnoxious side to me on my Discord than you do on here, if that's even possible. So yeah. Anyway, like, yes, let's get to this fucking documentary now. Oh, it's not a documentary, it's a fucking video essay. Now, I haven't watched this thing since it came out, like, what, a year ago. It's gotten like over 2 million views, so pretty much anyone who's tapped into the James Rolfe universe has probably seen this video, and even a lot of people who probably don't have any idea who the guy is, because I imagine this guy has, like, well, clearly he has a bunch of followers who's just going to watch whatever he puts out. I would love to get to that point one day to where I can just put out whatever the fuck I want and people will watch it. But yeah, get ready for a lot of big words. Now, I'm not saying it's bad to have a large vocabulary. I feel like I have a pretty large vocabulary. I dropped the word detritus in one of my earlier videos, and it was a word that I had learned, and I utilize new words I learned. But man, I feel like this guy just needlessly... It's like, yeah, I might have a good vocabulary, but I know who my audience is. A bunch of dumb fucks. No, I'm just joking. No, it's probably a bunch of people who I would have gotten along with in high school, so I talk to you like that because that's how I talk to my friends. My God, if Dan talks to his friends how he talks in this video, I would not want to be friends with that motherfucker. Or his stupid, long, wispy beard. God, fucking hangnail. Anyway, all right, let's get down to business here. Here we go again. Here we go again, Kamala. Kamala. No one's seen anything like it, Kamala. This guy, Dan Olson, he's a real jerk. Oh, no. I'm still working on my Trump. I might get him one day.
I feel a certain...
Bro, isn't this how every, like, 2005 emo or indie film, didn't they, like, all, like, have this kind of look or open up like this? It's like a fucking, what was it? The Grand Budapest Hotel, whoever directed that movie, just all of his, I think, yeah, anyway, so this kind of gives you a feel into what we're about to deal with here.
Certain amount of kinship with James Rolfe. We're basically the same age. We both went to film school. We
Wes Anderson.
Ultimately found ourselves making videos about media for YouTube. Better known as the angry video game nerd, James has this behind the scenes.
Now, would it have been beneath him to, instead of cut to him watching James on the phone, just put the whole video of James up on the screen as he does a voiceover underneath it? Is that method of editing so beneath him that he has to, like, have the cell phone kind of crooked in his crotch and he's kind of giving off, like, I don't know. I'm being a little nitpicky, but I'm like, why couldn't he have just done it like that? I don't know.
Video that I can't stop thinking about. AVGN Behind the Scenes and Nerd Room Tour 2021. There's just...
That was the video that put Red Cow Arcade on the map, as far as I'm concerned, with EJ and Frankie. The Behind the Scenes Nerd Room Tour. That's what he's referring to.
So much going on with it. There's a light stand suspended from the ceiling with craft wire, a cable hole.
Hey, speaking of Red Cow Entertainment, they're in the chat. Oh, yeah, I got some celebrities.
Made in a desk by attacking it with a drill like a slasher villain. The whole thing begins with an awkward disclaimer that the audio is being recorded from a different microphone just off screen than the one that's immediately apparent.
I recorded this entire video and realized this mic is not plugged in. The shotgun mic is plugged in.
Then there's the tripod. James expresses...
Now the microphone thing, again, the Red Cow video that blew this whole thing wide open, that they weren't even intending for a wide audience to see, which I'm sure a lot of you have seen this video, of the Red Cow video of those guys, Frankie and EJ, breaking down the Nerd Room setup. I gotta feel like Dan Olson had seen that video, because I would feel like only people who really worked in the field with the intensity that the Red Cow guys did. I don't feel like most people would have pointed out the fact that James shouldn't have pointed out the fact that one of his microphones was recording and one was. Like, when I watched that Nerd Room video, that detail just washed right over me. When he pointed that out, I was like, oh, okay, whatever. And I just kept watching. It was only until I watched the Red Cow video I was like, oh yeah, why did he feel the need to point? His audio sounded just fine. Why did he need to point that out? And I don't feel like Dan Olson organically. I think he gleaned a lot of stuff from all the other videos that had already came out at this point that were like taking a big fat dump on this video.
A desire to keep things out of his way, tripods, light stands, and such, to maximize floor space in his studio. A worthy goal I can empathize with as I sit here in a veritable forest of aluminum and steel. But then he shows his solution. A tripod head secured to a strip of lumber by two mismatched scraps of wood.
Dan Olson will go on in this video to make like a dozen of these, like with this autistic drivenness and dedication to the bit. And I didn't understand. I guess that's what I'm doing right now. Why did he go on to make several of these in his garage? I didn't understand, but you'll see. We'll get there.
It is a wrong thing, a kludged together precarious mess whose wrongness is intuitively...
Well, we got some words from the people themselves here, so it's worth reading. You're right, Josh, from Red Cow. You're right, Josh. He sourced most of this from the AVGN critical community, and then he called them all bigots. Yeah, and that comes at the end. That's the big, he's setting up the hoop shot right now, and at the end it's like, bam, slam dunk. You're all bigots and blah, blah, blah. And that's when the BreadTuber people started giving him standing ovations at the end there.
Apparent even to those who have little familiarity with the equipment of filmmaking. This thing ruined my life in the way that only the inexplicable decisions of strangers can. Why was this made? Why was this made this way? What was happening that created the circumstances that led to this being made the way that it was made?
Out of curiosity, Dan, why do you talk like this? Why do you feel the need to over-enunciate every single word you say and show to everyone just how good your diction and understanding of language really is?
Many of the solutions being shown off in the video seemed counterproductive, solutions to inefficiency more inefficient than the original problem. This glimpse behind the scenes paints a blurry yet still identifiable picture of a process of endless maintenance, a forever war James Rolfe is engaged in against the twin belligerents of entropy and James Rolfe.
Hold on, I might have to go and look up the word entropy here. He just used, at least for me anyway, on you guys. Gee whiz. Turkey Tom never says entropy. But Patrick CC never says entropy. Jesus. I know, isn't it like the degradation of something? Entropy, a thermodynamic quantity representing the unavailability of a system's thermal energy. Okay, that's physics. Lack of order or predictability. Okay, entropy, lack of order or predictability. Got it. Now I'm on game with Dan. Here we go.
Includes a captivating outtake from the recording of his 2021 video, Shrek Fairy Tale Freakdown, where he's tied to a chair and trying to hold an onion in his mouth like a ball gag. He loses his grip on the vegetable and lashes out in frustration, cursing the onion, cursing the ropes, cursing COVID, cursing the lack of hands to help.
Boy, I wish I had a crew. Wish we didn't have COVID and all this fucking bullshit.
James
It is a sincere frustration. Honestly, more compelling than the video it's from.
It's not sincere. It didn't feel all that sincere. It felt like it was something that was staged. So, for whatever reason, I don't know. Like, I just don't, I film everything myself, and I've never found myself in a situation where I'm like, boy, it sure is annoying not having my band here, or boy, it sure sucks not having any girls, because I'm kind of horny right now. I don't just say that out loud. I, like, think it, and I might say out loud, like, fuck. But I don't know. And again, this vocal cadence, I forgot how very deliberate Dan talks whenever he says anything at all. It's very deliberate. James dropped the vegetable, and upon doing this, it's like, oh, I'm in for some annoyances here. That's what I'll just simplify it. Some annoyances.
But it betrays a lack of foresight, a lack of planning, and its inclusion feels rhetorically misplaced.
I thought he was going to say retarded. And its inclusion feels retarded. Damn, I should probably edit that out.
Rhetorical confusion marbles throughout the studio tour. Repeated shoutouts given to his multi-channel network Screenwave, a seemingly out-of-left-field defense of his wife April, and a laundry list of one-off projects consuming his time. James says he'll be addressing some complaints.
Red Cow, watching him and Lindsay Ellis chit-chat about how experienced film veterans they are makes me sick. I would love to watch Frankie watch them and then react to that. That shit would be hilarious to me.
In his words,
of the asshole-ish variety.
Which suggests that there's something more going on. But why say these things? Why make these admissions? I thought I knew the angry video game nerd. I distinctly remember huddling with my film school peers around a computer in 2006, laughing over Chronologically Confused and mentally noting that the inevitable had begun. Serving video over the internet was on the cusp of viability, and the web was already...
Why is he filming like that? Why does it look like he's behind like some kind of theater production right now? Like he's backstage. It's just shit like this. I'm just like, is this all in lieu of you not wanting to throw up graphics on the screen and you don't want to be bothered with editing like in some kind of editing suite? Like you'd rather just have all of it be practical in front of the camera stuff? I mean, I literally, I don't know what please somebody help me out there. What is the point with doing all these angles? It only gets worse. We're only at the very beginning here.
Developing its own vernacular. Internet videos weren't just the happenstance of virality anymore. Out of context clips forwarded via email or repurposed clips of shows and movies. They were things being made for the internet. And everything was about to change. I may not have been the most ardent fan, but it was impossible to not know about the angry video game nerd, and
ardent is a slightly douchebaggy word, just want to throw that out there.
By extension, James Rolfe, the man behind the Pocket Protector. As the story goes, James Rolfe was a pioneer of new media. While he arguably spawned the entire genre of angry reviews and undeniably set the tempo for thousands of creators, he set himself apart from the crowd by being a trained filmmaker, having a leg up on the skill sets of lighting, sound, and camera work. Even as YouTuber became a real career, he never really seemed to embrace the identity, always seemed apart from it. As his peers would often detail, he wasn't a YouTuber, he was a filmmaker. But how could I square that reputation with this admission of his process, with the light stands arduously suspended with craft wire in lieu of a $15 scissor clamp? James says his camera work has grown stagnant, claims that it frustrates him most of all, before detailing an insistence on disassembling an entire rig to move from the prompter to the tripod, rather than using a quick release plate or investing in a second camera body, only to then, minutes later, admit to having a second camera body. This made me...
Again, these are all, like, by the time he had made this video, these were all things that had been thoroughly beaten over the head about in the Cinemassacre Truth, just wherever the fuck. Like I said, I feel like and it's not because I'm friends with them, and it's not because they're in the chat or whatever. I feel like that Red Cow video went viral, and it was exposed all this shit. And yeah, I mean, it's not like, oh yeah, only EJ and Frank are allowed to make these observations. That's not what I'm saying. But it just that video, I think, got the biggest for that time. I can't think of another one that was like pointing those things out in the same kind of way in a visual kind of medium. I'm sure it was being talked about on message boards. But I mean, this information had been out for a long ass time, and they had all become tired memes by the time this video even came out. I feel like I should be like Dan Olson right now and have like a fucking VCR with like a CRT of me talking right now that I cut to. I don't have that kind of technology right now. And it was done with way shorter shorts. That's right. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's like low-hanging fruit for his channel, because the guy's almost at 1 million subscribers. So it just seems like, I don't know, maybe it's because like AVGN is kind of hangs in that last little vestige of like that Doug Walker like golden era of YouTube where they all talked, because I mean certainly James collaborated with Doug Walker, who was tight with Lindsay Ellis, who apparently is friends with Dan Olson. And anyway, maybe that's why he made the video. Maybe he's a grifter, guys. Maybe he's a grifter. That's something I know I am. That's why I'm doing this right now.
Keenly aware of one thing above all. I do not know James Rolfe.
I would have liked to insert a fart sound just in that awkward little pause he had there. Just. Please don't use any copyrighted music, Dan. I don't trust that he's not going to use copyrighted music, so I'm muting it for right now, because I played a Rage Against the Machine video at the end of that Kick-Assia stream, and it just blocked the fuck out of it, so I had to have it digitally removed. Yep, it's still playing it. I guess this is his intro. Is he also some kind of carpenter? Because like he does seem to have this whole ass rig going on in his garage when he starts building those weird camera mounts. That was a long intro. Okay. Still going on. I do not trust that this isn't some fucking pretentious band that he's using as his intro, like Of Montreal or something like that, as his theme, or like a Spoon song or something that I'm going to get just...
Something of his oddities. The distant specter of the man gripped me with a hunger for comprehension, a compulsion to know more. Fortunately, he had already offered me more. In 2022, James self-published his memoirs and autobiography, A Movie-Making Nerd.
Yeah, I listened to that audiobook several times. It really only gets interesting like 2/3 of the way in. Red Cow says, if we rent a theater for Kick-Assia, you should come, Josh. Man, I might come just for the experience, but having to sit through that fucking movie again, like I just watched it last week, so... And it's not even one of those that's like so good that, yeah, just give me a few months, bro. I'll want to watch it again. It's like I never, quite frankly, never really want to see that movie again in my life. I called out Jason Graves several times on my last stream and reminded my chat that this is his favorite movie, by the way, for those of you who know who that is. I also wanted to point out, you can already see here that Dan is utilizing some kind of a tape recorder, or he's just using a filter on his editing suite to give the effect of the audio coming out of a tape recorder. Again, why? What are we supposed to be like in some like prop master's studio apartment, and this is how he would be presenting information to somebody? Like, sometimes you might hear me come out of a recorder, sometimes it might be out of a 1978 tube TV, sometimes it might be through a projection screen. I'm a prop master. I'm crazy. You never know what I'm going to do.
Circumstances being what they are, I feel a reintroduction is necessary. Between 2004 and 2006, fresh film school grad James Rolfe created a trilogy of short skits where he played a stereotypical nerd complaining about old Nintendo games. The character lampooned something that James saw as inherently funny: his friends getting intensely angry about video games. His university buddy, Mike Matai, thought they were...
Oh yeah, that's another thing he fucked up a lot. He calls him Mike Matai. He's so in the universe, bro. Like, he's so not someone who just came in to make a quick buck or 500,000. I don't know, not 500,000. I don't know. He's got 2 million views. He probably made about 10 or 15K off this video. And he's calling him Mike Matai. Matai. No, that's when James has to tie a tie for his suit. It's where's Matai? Okay, that was a really cheap, corny joke that I regret, and had this not been a live stream, I would have edited it out, but too late. There it is.
Hilarious, and in 2006 uploaded the videos to the fledgling YouTube, where they would see enormous success, compelling James to make more of them and creating what we now know as the Angry Video Game Nerd. The brand and format coalesced quickly and has remained largely unchanged for 20 years. For the 7th video, McKids, their friend Kyle Justin wrote an absolute earworm of a theme song that is honestly somewhere between 40 and 80% of the reason that we're having this conversation in the first place.
It's gonna take you back to the past. Okay, I don't know what kind of weird shit's gonna happen if I let that intro play, so I'm just gonna mute it. You all know it. The shitty recorded guitar, the diarrhea dump, and the skunk, and the fucking fish cocks and all that kind of stuff that he says on there. Oh, he's talking
would
again.
handle the video production. The show's comedy hinged, and really still hinges, on a combination of acidic vulgarity, casual violence, and an excess of juvenile machismo.
What was the point in that? He had it like an iPad. Now he put down a smaller cell phone that's gonna play another James Rolfe. It's like, dude, what is the like? This, are you trying to be like the Michelle Gondry of shitty YouTube BreadTube content here with the different practical on camera effects here, so you don't have to do a whole lot of like pre or post production or whatever the fuck?
This game is worse than a Mischief Night prank. Mischief Night is throwing toilet paper all over someone's yard. This game is the equivalent of throwing toilet paper after you wiped your ass. It's as refreshing as a horse's anus. Fuck the crawl up its bird ass, and fuck you, you fucking clown-faced Joker, Kiss makeup wearing King Diamond, Beetlejuice, Alice Cooper, Marilyn Manson motherfucker.
Hey, that's when James could actually still sound convincingly angry.
But it wasn't James's first creation. James did not apparate ex nihilo in 2006, and a movie-making nerd is an opportunity.
He did not what? Apparate ex nihilo? Did he just say something in Canadian that I didn't understand?
To delve into that prehistory.
Oh, ex nihilo. What's that? Oh, there's another big fancy college word. What's that word mean? I have no idea.
Now is as good a time as any to mention the odd conflict that swirls around James. He has attracted a not insubstantial audience of cankerous hate watchers, self-styled truthers who have made a hobby of...
How do you say douchebag in Latin?
...disseminating what they see to be the truth of James Rolfe, that he is a man of hubris, ungrateful for his success on YouTube, and dismissive of the very fans who gave him a career in the first place. Alternately, a know-nothing failure of a filmmaker, or a cuckolded...
Bagus douches. Yes, Dan Olson, Bagus douches.
...visionary who could have had it all if he hadn't been laid low by his bitch wife. I am far from the first person to ask the question, who is James Rolfe?
Oh, him just saying his bitch wife and all that, that was, that he's quoting what the critics have said. Dan himself was not in a fit of rage just then calling James's wife a bitch. Thank you, Super Anthony, for the $5. I bespoke this homunculus upon you. So I'll just go ahead and say Super Anthony was the one in the Discord earlier that I was talking about who was defending Kick-Assia, and I had to reiterate my hatred for that movie, and he's like, oh, I guess you didn't like it after all. I'm like, no, I kind of spent my whole live stream shitting on it, but thank you, Anthony. I encourage differing opinions in my Discord.
James is, by reputation, personally extremely offline. He values his privacy and sees social media as a distraction from his craft, tries to keep his personal life personal. That is an admirable quality, but it's also obviously not a hard line. Obviously, I'm holding a copy of his self-published autobiography. Whatever secrecy James enjoys by not dropping selfies on the gram every day, he makes up for with infrequent but overwhelming trips into his personal affairs. He may not go often, but when he goes big. And maybe that is why it has wormed its way into my brain. Not all of the fascination with the historical arc of the AVGN is odious. There is something profoundly compelling about James. People who...
You see how he's talking right now? How he's like, we're the audience and we're looking at the side of his face and he's talking at the wall. That's exactly how he talks to people that he just meets for the first time. I feel there's got to be that level of tism a bit to where like he's not staring you in the eye when he talks to you. He is turning his face completely sideways and staring at the wall.
Become aware of his quirks, find themselves enthralled.
Anyway, that's all I have to say for now. There's 10 more videos to make on this subject, but that's James Rolfe and the DVX 100.
People talk about James.
Wait, what was that? What was that random clip that they just played? That was James Rolfe and DVX 100. Why did he just throw that clip in there? That's weird.
In a very specific way. My friends talk.
This dude's only 44? Are you fucking kidding me? What the hell? Dude, he legit looks 60 years old. Holy fuck. I can't believe I'm like, I don't know, what, 8 years younger than him? And I look like 20 or 30 years younger than him. Holy fuck.
About James in a very specific way, and I have developed a very strange, almost adversarial relationship with that. The cultural impact of AVGN is undeniably far-reaching. He is, without question, the direct inspiration for many, many imitators and derivatives. AVGN set the tone that all YouTube reviews would in some form or another respond to. 2 decades on, the cultural impact of AVGN is deep in the DNA of YouTube. But it is also likewise easy to overstate the uniqueness of the angry video game nerd, as though James captured something that would have never otherwise existed. The concept of media critique as entertainment did not begin with James Rolfe.
There's so many words, dude. Like, what has he even said about the guy so far? Like, he was a film guy. Dan used to watch him in college. He kind of did something innovative for the time. I just said that in like 20 seconds and we're already like 12 minutes into this fucking video.
The bottom line is this: Swamp Buggy Racing is one of the most inexplicably bad pieces of software ever mass-produced for the consumer market. Do not buy it, do not rent it, do not even pick up the box. I'm going to go launch the game one last time to get screenshots for this review, and after that I'll be giving the game disc to the 4-year-old who lives downstairs so he can turn it into a colorful frisbee. 6%, PC Gamer, May 2000. Classic. Basically, as long as the review has existed as a literary form, writers have sought to make them entertaining for their own sake. Even disregarding that long legacy, the DNA...
This reminds me why I never did well in college, because I'd just be like sitting there and I would feel myself starting to drift away and like not pay attention. And then I'd have to remind myself, all right, Josh, pay attention. Like really make an effort to pay attention to everything this guy's saying. And, you know, all these professors are exactly the same. They want to, like, flex their fucking just ability to pontificate just for long periods of time and kind of lose the whole point of, like, actually teaching you something, like kind of giving you direct, salient points that kind of stick with you. He's just saying a lot of words, and every now and then he'll sprinkle it in with something that might be a little like, oh, okay, like, yeah, I guess. But now I find myself, like, kind of drifting off, like, fuck, maybe this is why you should throw graphics on the screen. So now visually it breaks up just watching the side of your 60-year-old fucking face for, like, the next 15 minutes. You know, I think that's the fun and the dynamic nature of YouTube videos is you're throwing in graphics, you're throwing in things on the screen to... keep someone's attention, unless you are that charismatic of a figure where you can just kind of capture people's attentions. One thing that, God, it sounds like I'm sucking their dick so hard because they're in the chat, but one thing that the Red Cow podcast does, their clip channel at least, if they're talking about a certain topic, they are peppering it in with video clips or sound clips that illustrate what they're talking about. And I mean, honestly, Frankie's way more of a charismatic speaker than this boring fuck, who I'm sure is reading from a script right now. Well, I know for a fact he's reading from a script or a teleprompter, which, I mean, there's no shame in doing that. I do it too, but whenever I do it, you don't think that I'm reading from a teleprompter. This guy is like, he's reading from a novel that he has wrote. He did a dissertation about the AVGN. Now he's smelling his own farts right now.
Of the angry video game nerd follows in a lineage with Siskel and Ebert at the movies, Mystery Science Theater 3000, Stomp Tokyo, and SeanBaby.com. Culturally, AVGN was right in line with Penny Arcade. In 2006, Jerry and Mike were entering their 8th year of success with a webcomic whose comedy hinged on acidic vulgarity, casual violence, and an excess of juvenile machismo, a formula that had proven so successful they were able to spin it off into its own expo in 2004. There were many people putting out the same kind of material as James, but his filmmaking background gave him a critical advantage in the early days of YouTube. Simply owning a digital camera and having a basic grasp of audio separated him from his competitors filming on webcams.
Okay, Dan, let's change the camera angle now. I'm tired of looking at the side of your stupid head.
James Rolfe was perfectly positioned and by coincidence struck an iron he didn't even know was hot. Like all YouTubers, he got lucky. He got insanely lucky. While the early YouTube subscriber numbers look modest by modern
I have tried to get lucky. I've tried to be nice to Lindsay Ellis. She will not, for whatever reason, respond to my text messages. Now, I have made a very intellectual argument as to why we would be a good couple, perhaps friends with benefits. That would be fantastic. However, she will not do that. She treats me like I am this inane homunculus. Quite frankly, that does make me a little annoyed. That's why I am making this video, because if I make enough money, perhaps I can get her attention one way or the other, since, as you all know, I am not a very attractive man.
standards, James Nintendo Nerd was briefly the 8th largest channel on YouTube in 2008 with 125,000 subscribers. And the channel's 3, almost 4 million modern subscribers are respectable but somewhat mundane. The subscriber numbers don't betray just how popular the nerd really was. By the time the AVGN movie was announced in 2011, the channel had nearly 300 million lifetime views. He didn't just have viewers, he had fans, passionate fans who made fan art. Not just fan art, fan video games. It is no overstatement to say that the angry video game nerd was a phenomenon. The book is structured around James's career.
I never realized how thin that book was. The few times that he's like brought it up, like I thought it was thicker for some reason. But yeah, that looks, I mean, I guess it's a book. It's kind of like a pamphlet on steroids, though, a little bit, it seems like to me.
As a filmmaker, taking it as a given that James is in fact not a YouTuber. Even AVGN is conceptual.
Oh, speaking of books, I did not know this, but apparently if you possess the first print run of Pat the NES Punk's Ultimate Guide to the NES Library, it's worth like a couple $100 on eBay, and I looked it up, and it is in fact worth a couple of $100 on eBay. And I bought like the first run that he put out. I bought because like I was following Pat pretty extensively at that time, so got my little golden parachute on my bookshelf. So what do you think about that?
As a Cinemassacre production, just one of the many things that James has made. James has been.
The reason why it's worth so much is because in the second revision, Pat took out all the Brett Weiss reviews because him and Brett Weiss got into an East Coast, West Coast gang war, and there was a lot of violence and gunplay. I'm just joking. No, Pat just got butthurt at Brett Weiss for reasons I don't feel like getting into, but yeah, so the Brett Weiss reviews are in the first edition. So if you own the first edition, then you got a couple $100 in the bank there, buddy.
Making movies since he was 8 years old, and in the telling of the story, James chronicles his career from that point through film school to the first performance of his band Rex Viper in October 2021. The shocking thing really is how absent the nerd is in the book, to the point it's hard to articulate how little weight is given to the subject. You learn more about what James thinks of the film Wavelength than you do the web show that is, holistically, his 20-year career.
Yeah, he brings up a decent point, which is also, again, been brought up kind of a lot by a lot of people. One of the big complaints about James's book is that he spends maybe, I don't know. I listened to the audiobook. I think he spent like I think it's like an 8-hour audiobook, and I think he spends like 20 minutes talking about AVGN. He spends like an hour talking about the movie, which is kind of nice because, you know, the movie was a huge fucking flop, and, you could kind of hear like all the turmoil he went through to bring that to life. But yeah, he talks about for the thing that made him who he is. He talks freakishly little about it in his super pamphlet. Is this the beginning to Nine Inch Nails' Closer music video? That would be awesome. I'd much rather watch that. You let me...
Wavelength is a 1967 experimental short film created by Canadian multidisciplinary artist Michael Snow. Wavelength as a film is relatively easy to describe, but difficult...
Okay, so here's where he's got his iPad taped up to the wall. And he's filming, I guess, imagery from the movie again. What is this, like green painter's tape and some like white gaffer's tape? What is literally the aesthetic point of this shot, man? Like, so stupid. And also, I forgot, since it's been so long since I've seen this, is he about to go in depth about the fucking movie Wavelength? I don't remember if he does that or not, but if he does, I'm going to kick him. I'm going to flap to Canada, because I can tell that's where he's from, because he said Bean about 100 times now instead of Ben. So I'm going to fly to Canada, kick him in the nuts, and shave his beard.
To explain. It functions as something of an inkblot test for critics, as the way in which you go about explaining it will inevitably betray something about the way in which you approach film. Some critics praise the film as the birth of a nation or Citizen Kane of underground films, while other critics heckled the film and many walked out. Michael Snow, for his part, found this hilarious. Wavelength, like many avant-garde films, is what you bring to it. Is it a 45-minute long shot of a wall, or is it a film about film and its relationship to...
This fucking video feels like a fucking 45-minute shot of a wall, because that's kind of what it is right now.
Time. That is an exercise for the viewer. This versatility has allowed the film to be used as a foundation for complex discussions in film theory, but despite its importance, Wavelength is perhaps better known as a foil for students, the archetype of heady, pretentious films to endure in film school.
Words, 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 words. I just got my fucking headphone cable tangled up in my chair, and I had to untangle it, and that was like a lot more fun than the last 17 minutes.
Students prime themselves to reject the film, but even in rejection, they engage with Wavelength. The only constant in watching Wavelength is the active viewership itself. You must physically experience the film to understand it. If Wavelength could be said to have a core theme, it would...
I just imagine, okay, as I play this going forward, just imagine just me playing this and him talking, going really in depth, and then just someone in the back of the classroom going, "Suck a dick, son!"
Be reflection. The film uses boredom and frustration to force the viewer to engage. A wandering mind is, in its own way, an unintended response. The viewer is compelled to reflect on their role in proceedings, their role as a viewer. The movie, in essence, holds a mirror up to the audience. In cursing the time lost and in describing their tortuous experiences, even the most checked out students unknowingly engage with the film's ideas. That is the unique power of Wavelength. Even in rejecting it, the viewer learns something about themselves.
Yeah, why does he keep pulling the fucking camera back? That's so annoying. Red Cow, I was assured by very dumb people in my comments that this video is actually a brilliant investigation of himself. Yeah, I saw this dude, I forget his name. He's got an English accent, blonde-haired guy, St. Patrick or something like that. He was talking about this video in some similar regard, although he was criticizing it as well. But apparently they're both friends and both BreadTubers. That term BreadTube is kind of
James's
cringe.
profile as a filmmaker is ultimately dominated by his one feature film, crowdfunded in 2011, shot in 2012, and released in 2014. Summer 2024 will be the 10th anniversary.
Oh, now he's busting out the projector. Oh, shit. He loves this effect, man. He loves this fucking projector. He thinks it's like the coolest There's one moment where he even projects James over himself like it's a projection. He's projecting a projection. Get ready to see a lot of this projector used here coming up.
Of the Angry Video Game Nerd, the movie, a truly bizarre and intriguing piece of outsider art. All movies are miracles, but this one is a bit more of a miracle than most. By all rights, it should not exist. The production was troubled in all the ways that productions are, and then on top of that, in a number of ways that movies typically aren't. It is, on some, not very good, but that much has been said before. It is, as a story, rudderless and confusing, an unresolved conflict of creative fascinations, external pressures, and foundational bad decisions. It's tempting to get caught in the quagmire of those decisions.
If I ever unironically use the word quagmire in one of my scripts, you can feel free to unsubscribe to me or bring it up and I'll mail you $1. Like, what the yeah, that's such a fucking pretentious word to use unless you're like Jim Morrison, but he just says mire. He doesn't say quagmire. Oh, thank you for the $9.99. I was like Emilio. I can't help but think of 9/11 watching Dan's perspective. Yeah, dude, me neither. I can't help but think about 9/11 whenever I watch this video and all the lives that were lost. That's how 28 Days Later felt.
But for the most part, it can all be traced back to boring foundational issues. And learning of all the myriad ways in which the budget was poorly optimized, and seeing the dated and weak humor in watching an actor who isn't enamored with the mythology of James Rolfe pronounce the name Death Wathix to little success, it's easy to latch on as though those details are the thing that makes the movie what it is, but the true problem is much more basic.
Yeah, honey, don't get your panties in a wad.
I'm not wearing any panties.
I'm not wearing any panties.
Yeah, that was one of the many cringe scenes from this movie.
The script was written haphazardly by James and his high school buddy Kevin Finn over the course of almost 6 years, originating shortly after AVGN itself in 2006. It is trying to be a supersized episode of the web show and a flex of James's skills as a filmmaker and a self-aware B-movie version of a blockbuster,
which I would watch any day of the week over Kick-Assia. Let me just throw that out there right the fuck now. And this is not a good movie at all. AVGN, the movie, was not good at all. But any day of the week over Kick-Assia. And probably any of Doug's other movies.
And just something altogether not the web show. This is the foundational problem, an inability to decide on what the project actually was. Without a creative vision, an actual big picture creative vision of what the finished product is supposed to be, the end product lacks focus, lacks intent, lacks the backstop of feedback that would tell the two of them that Death Wathix...
I used the word turmoil in a conversation. This cute girl I liked laughed at me. Fallen terror. That's fuck. Yeah, see, you gotta adjust for the room, man. I guess all of his followers are just much smarter than the rest of us. Cause holy hell, I would never. I mean, I could write like this if I wanted to. If I wanted to be a fucking unrelatable douche, I could write like this. But this is not how I speak to my friends when I'm like just out in real life. So why am I going to write my scripts like this? Unless, I mean, I know this guy was already popular before he put this video out, so maybe he had established that he's some kind of well, he uses a lot of big words, so he must be this is the final stop on this train ride of clowning on AVGN. If you want the final informed opinion, this is the guy that you go to. You know, this is the end of the argument at this video, because listen to how many words he's using and how big of words he is using. Every time Redbird and Red Cow comment, and I always get confused because their logos are so similar. Just throwing that out there.
As the name of the film's ultimate kaiju villain is an in-joke between the writers that just isn't very funny. The entire movie bizarrely revolves around the nerd being compelled in some way to review E.T. for the Atari 2600, the fragmentary shards of the movie as a supersized episode.
Is that how he got around using the ET? He had to use E-E-E-E-T-E-E. Because I remember that was like a big thing in the book, like right before he went to release the movie. Steven Spielberg, I guess, wouldn't sign off on the use of E.T. in the movie. So that's how he had to get around it. He just used he spelled it all like E-T. I'm putting it in the chat. I mean, as if you guys don't already understand what I'm talking about. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, again, Frankie, Red Cow, Bravo, good point. It's like, why do you gotta keep being so official with everything, dude? Like, they all must be union actors, hired union actors. It must be shot in Los Angeles. All these, intellectual properties must be above board. It's like, dude, what do you think? Like, 5,000 people saw this movie, max? I mean, like, I think you're good. I think you're good. If some of your videos on your YouTube channel have like over however many millions of views and you've not gotten a cease and desist yet in the mail from a lawyer, I think you're good on just calling the fucking game E.T. like they did like the original Atari game.
But clearance for the actual E.T. intellectual property was never secured, requiring the movie to revolve around a spoof instead, which undercuts the verisimilitude of the movie as a big budget
similitude. That's a big word. I don't know what that one means.
Episode. The core plot never makes much sense, the motivations of the nerd are incoherent, and the core conflict seems to be that the nerd doesn't want to review the game because it gave him nightmares as a child, which itself appears to be an episode lifted from James' own childhood, as a version of the scene is one of the recurring nightmares James describes in the first chapter of the book.
I think part of the problem of the plot, the motivation, all that kind of shit with the AVGN movie was much like Kick-Assia, it was a movie made for the fans. So you kind of have to already go into the AVGN movie knowing the whole running gag of the AVGN character refuses to review ET because it's so bad that it mustn't be the game which must not be spoken of. It's just the worst game ever made. That's the running gag on the internet series. And so he, as a nod, I think, to the fans, brought that into the movie, and much like Kick-Assia, Santa Christ makes a random appearance towards the end. And it's like, I didn't watch Doug Walker enough to know who Santa Christ was supposed to represent, but they're all in the movie cheering Santa Christ, and then it's just like, what is going on here? Like, it's literally too much fan service to the point of like, if you are a filthy casual, it's just gonna go right over your head and you're gonna be like, what the fuck are you talking about? No, super chat from Super Anthony, $5. Watching this feels painfully longer than Dylan Night Owl's 6-hour video on James. Well, that's partly because I keep pausing the video every 5 seconds, but sorry about that.
The production itself was plagued with indecision. James was wearing a lot of different hats that placed tremendous demands on his attention, requiring a level of delegation that he was simply unprepared for. The process stretched out years longer than anyone wanted and left James thoroughly burnt out and disillusioned with the whole circus. Some AVGN viewers wonder why the film introduces two new characters, Cooper and Mandy, rather than relying on Mike, Kyle, Bootsy, or any of the other day players that featured in AVGN episodes, and I feel like the answer is obvious. Can you imagine Mike Matai trying to act in a feature film?
Matai?
No, just no. James himself...
He just said, can you feature Mike Matai acting in a feature film? I don't know. Some of my favorite AVGN episodes are when he's playing those various characters like Bugs Bunny or the Joker or fucking, what was it, Bugs Bunny? Did I already say Bugs Bunny? I don't know. Like, I don't know. I felt when he was doing those extreme character acting, it was pretty fucking hilarious. Kind of the highlight of some of the older AVGN episodes, if you ask me. I mean, if he's playing himself, yeah, it probably would be kind of stilted, but I don't know. Give him some weird character or something. Or maybe that would have broken the fourth wall too much. I don't fucking know. I think Mike Matai is a pretty decent actor. And I got his girlfriend to shout me out on one of my videos I did. I think it was the last Rex Viper one. She noticed, Senpai noticed me.
Struggles through the movie because, well, he's not an actor. Like, well, he is an actor in the literal sense. He performs a character on camera professionally, but he is and always has been an actor of convenience. The only reason he is the nerd is because he didn't have anyone else around to play the nerd instead. That's not to say James...
Oh, is he about to project James onto himself right now? All right, you guys, make sure you pay a lot of attention because this is supposed to be really fucking deep.
Isn't good at being the nerd. It takes work to be a clown. James has...
Oh, yeah, I think this is where he starts trying to get angry and possess. And you're about to see the Dan Olson version of the nerd. So there's never been anything as epic as what you're about to see. So we're going to proceed or process or whatever weird Canadian. Yes, I've even stooped down to just making fun of how he pronounces words. So therefore, I guess I'm making fun of like half of Canada. Because like half of Canada talks like that and the other half just doesn't. I don't know what's up with that. That's a whole nother live stream.
Skills as a performer, his ability to suppress his self-consciousness and yell, scream, fart, and vomit for an audience isn't to be downplayed. Do you have any idea how hard it is to get mad on camera?
Oh,
there's
so
a whole
cringe.
instinct of embarrassment, of self-preservation that you need to
you're embarrassing yourself right now.
in order to sit alone in a room and howl at full volume for an audience that doesn't
cringy.
even exist. They can't see you, the real you, sitting on the floor of your basement.
See you, the real you. They can't see. Oh, it's so bad.
Debasing yourself for them. They're just phantasms off in the future that are going to consume some ghost of you, spewed out at them by their phones as a crass homunculus of
Oh, homunculus, he finally said it, yes! The word that I got autistically obsessed with when I first watched this fucking video, because he says it several times going forward. The homunculus is here. His beard smells like a smelly homunculus.
photons and digital audio. It's easy to postulate on what the movie maybe should have been instead. A low-budget horror movie or creature feature, literally just a big-budget YouTube video in the same vein as the Channel Awesome anniversary specials, basically anything other than what it actually was. But I have mulled on and dismissed the notion that AVGN the movie is an aberration. Well, there are undeniable conflicting incentives in the mix. The whole thing was clearly an extension of the angry video game nerd because that was the thing the crowd would respond to, the thing they could raise money for. I still think what we got is ultimately truthful to James's instincts as a filmmaker. James's earliest filmography has been lost to the inevitable rot of VHS tapes, but conveniently the book preserves many of them as anecdotes, lessons, and technological milestones in James's journey as a filmmaker. The book by volume is mostly concerned with second, the shooting of AVGN the movie, and first, the documentation and
I opened my can of squirt and it squirted all over the place. Now it's going to squirt in my mouth and down my white, moist throat. God, that's good.
Preservation of over 24 home movies James produced in the 1990s between the ages of 12 and 18. James, from his own telling, draws a lot of energy from being the director, which in the nebulous hierarchy of the playground is less a creative visionary and more the child who leads the play. These home movies, which James pointedly and explicitly calls films, are, from their descriptions, basically what you'd expect from a child let loose with a camcorder. They're improvisational, loose, unfocused, and shot in linear order. In short, filmmaking as a form of play. Getting friends to act wasn't easy. Everyone was busy. Next time I got some of them over was Snicks, 1993.
Bro, I feel like this is the guy at the bar. Or like sits in the corner, like with his laptop. or a book or something. And he like wants to talk to like the chicks so bad, or even like another person, but he's just like not going to because he possesses zero fucking social skills because he uses words like homunculus and fucking whatever the other words that he said. I feel like Ricky from Trailer Park Boys right now trying to like talk about something that involves a lot of brain thinking, but yeah, like I don't know. I would not want to be around this guy in public. I don't think I would.
I quickly thought of a spontaneous story about an ancient warlock, Snyx, who died centuries ago but left behind a mask made of paper and feathers. In the present day, the mask is discovered and possesses my friend with the warlock's spirit when he puts it on. He stalks me and tries to kill me. We made up the plot as we went along, but it was cut short when his mom called him home to dinner. After that, I had to complete his scenes by puppeteering the mask in close-ups only and performing Snyx's voice myself. Again, it was complete garbage, but it survived. It's my oldest existing movie to feature live actors besides myself, and has become sort of, in a strange way.
What's the point of having a spotlight on him right now? Like he's on stage, like giving some kind of a Shakespearean performance. What's the point of that? You're reading from a shitty book that is riddled with spelling errors from what I've heard from everybody about a dude's very troubled upbringing who's like an e-celeb. Why are we lighting this like you're delivering some great kind of theater right now, like in front of an audience? Dan, why are we doing this?
A classic of mine. His actors were whatever neighbors were available. In spite of his pleas, the filming of Dino Men from D4, 1994, rolled over from Saturday into Sunday and had to be abandoned because his friends just didn't want to do a second day. Night of Total Terror, 1996, was the first movie where James felt his friends wanted to be there. It was, in his own words, a blatant rip of Raiders of the Lost Ark and the Maltese Falcon, the MacGuffins of those films replaced with a cursed genie lamp. His films eventually settled into a routine of James hanging out with a few friends making stuff they found fun. James learned to treat the films with soft hands as his friends refused to learn lines, rarely respected continuity, and occasionally would just overwrite the tape and destroy the footage. This informed his style as a director. James says he likes to work in small crews, treating actors as close personal friends and encouraging them to improvise. This informal style, where productions are measured in hours rather than days, and the enjoyment of the actors is given priority, was well suited to the angry video game.
What are you talking about? It's boring. You're boring. Your video is boring. You must have known that this was boring. I know. As much as I joke, there was a lot of editing that went into this video. And I know anybody who edits their video, they watch it like 100 times to make sure it's right, especially if you're straddling 1 million subscribers. I know you watch this, Dan. How did you not get that gut instinct or that feeling in your stomach when you're a video editor, when you're editing your own content and you're like, this is really wordy, this is really long. I myself am getting bored watching my own video. Why don't I cut out some fat here, make this a little bit of a leaner, quicker kind of video. Not saying that every video has to be like jump cuts every 2 seconds or anything like that, like you're editing a music video, obviously, but I mean, God, there are ways to do video essays that are quite entertaining. And then there's this guy.
Nerd series. Mike could goof around and make James laugh, and it would translate reasonably well to YouTube. But the AVGN movie exposed the flaws in James's filmmaking approach. Union actors in Los Angeles don't want to be the director's friend, and the shooting schedule of Snyx Returns does not prepare you for 28 days of principal photography for a feature film. The AVGN movie is spiritually just another home movie. So, I may have misrepresented the book, though maybe you already figured this out. It's bad, but...
What are we on, like the 14th different perspective / audio technique here? We got like another film or a tape recorder sound effect going on. Now we have to like look at the back of Dan's ass as he edits or something. Is that this new angle?
In the constellation of awful YouTuber autobiographies, which range from shamelessly improvisational to active attempts to obfuscate crime, a movie-making nerd doesn't really rank. It's not that kind of bad, but it is also impressively self-destructive. As I went through its pages, I found myself tempted to make sweeping claims about how James sees the world, how he sees himself, but stopped when I realized that I couldn't tell the difference between statements that implied a total lack of self-reflection, a mind that still held juvenile opinions 20 years after the fact as sincerely as the day they were first formed, and the weak writing. Large swaths.
Oh, is that what that is? A mirror? I was like, what is that thing that's bobbing up and down behind him? Is that like a dog or something? I was like tripping me out. I wasn't gonna say anything about it, but yeah, I'm glad someone fucking pointed that out because that was really bothering me.
Of the book are very basic in their construction. Pages of paragraphs of 6 to 7 word subject verb sentences. The most fun class was acting. The instructor was very serious about it.
Dan is cutting up
like
a body
drill
in the
sergeant.
background.
The fans take an active role in the movie. They're the ones requesting the nerd.
Yeah, you know why we were all looking at the mirror? Because that was the only interesting thing going on in the fucking scene that was like, oh, something that's not Dan. Let me stare at this other thing that's moving. No, it was just a mirror. Maybe that had meaning too, bros. I bet this fucking video, like 10 years from now, will probably be looked at as the like YouTube, The Shining of YouTube, where every single thing had a meaning. If only us homunculi had the intelligence to recognize the art that Dan was putting forward.
To review the game. I think that's a great thing. The fans helped create the idea for this movie. But my character, the nerd, doesn't want to review the game. He feels pressured. Not all of the assignments were fun. Some of them were rudimentary, like painting grayscales and color wheels. All were tedious, messy, and basic. Some of the textbook classes required writing boring essays to explain why time is like a grain of sand. In other words, do your best to come up with some bullshit. Over 430 words are dedicated to a failed.
Oh, look, we have yet another new perspective. I don't know what are we looking at here. Let's what kind of new kind of cinematic fucking, I don't even have words anymore.
Location scout for a boiler room set during the filming of AVGN, the movie that could be funny if it were well told, could be a trivial event that details a state of mind or just elicits a chuckle, but is delivered with the narrative intensity of a grocery list. I don't doubt that the book is.
Oh, Dan is certainly trying to do a meta thing, and that's kind of the operative phrase here. He is trying.
A reasonably accurate accounting of factual events, more or less in the order that they occurred, and that it contains certain insights into James, his life, his way of thinking, and his relationship with himself. But at the same time, I don't think it can really be trusted for much else. It is not a bad thing that it was self-published, but it is a keenly present thing. It is self-serving, as all autobiographies are, but equally self-destructive. The portrait painted by the book is one of a stagnant man with limited capacity to self-reflect, a poor understanding of how and why things happened the way they did, and a general lack of curiosity. A movie-making nerd compels us to conceptualize James not as a revolutionary YouTuber.
You guys want me to headbutt my
but
microphone
as a
again?
filmmaker.
I'll do it.
James Rolfe, the main character of the book, reflects back on university 2 decades after the fact and seemingly has no new insights into what his instructors were trying to impart. There are no lessons that were obnoxious in the moment but made sense years later. There is no appreciation for the exposure to cross-disciplinary fundamentals, nothing to suggest that being made to draw household objects with the cold precision of a draftsman gave him an appreciation for the geometry of camera optics. No reflection that being made to write about film as an art, as metaphor, gave him tools that he has called on in his nearly 20-year career as the host of a show deconstructing creative works.
Oh, this is probably one of my most hated visual effects that he does, where he has this camera set up to film him, and now he's filming the fucking preview wheel screen, whatever you want to call it, fucking fold out thing there. I used to know a term for that thing, but whatever. I'm not on the techie side. I just know how to do it. I don't know what everything's necessarily called. Yeah, it's like he's shooting himself, which makes me want to shoot myself. But, you know, in the Kurt Cobain kind of way.
He tells a story about a technical exercise in his first year of university, an assignment meant to familiarize students with the basic operation of the 16mm Bolex cameras that were standard film student tools of the day, that he hijacked in order to remake A Night of Total Terror. His own framing of the story makes him look like an egomaniac. The assignment is to simply use the camera successfully to create an image of literally anything. James pitches an elaborate shoot with costumes and lighting. The instructor kindly explains that it's not that kind of assignment. James says he found the assignment annoying at the time, but on reflection, it was really valuable because it taught him to stand up for himself. Because he ignored the instructions, showed up on the day with a box full of Halloween costumes, and hijacked the entire class, and then the instructor just kind of caved because whatever. It's not entirely clear from the book, but the implication is that he spent the entire time as the director. No one else got a turn with the camera.
Wish you guys had voted on Suburban Nights or Linkar's shitty movie. Why did the community have to overwhelmingly vote on this fucking video?
Shoot my little narrative as intended. Directing a room full of 20 students gave me a positive rush. The energy and excitement was high.
Hell, Rolling Stones even came out with a list of the top 50 most disappointing albums recently that I could have talked about. But no, I had to choose this fucking video.
Like a director. It's a heartwarming story about how if you just ignore the instructions and disregard your peers, you too can get to feel important for an afternoon. He would then remake A Night of Total Terror again in junior year, his third crack at the story by my count, the cursed skull being replaced with a cursed cat statue. Seemingly every movie James makes revolves around an inanimate
I picked one of those like pieces of, what do they call them, cuticle on your skin, and that started bleeding. I figure this is more interesting than the Dan Olson thing right now. So that's what I'm dealing with currently is a little bit of blood.
He keeps remaking movies he made when he was...
I know, isn't that the worst?
If not remakes, then sequels. There are 6 Snicks movies. His most recent crack at something not AVGN related was The Head Returns, a 20 years later sequel to a home movie he made in high school. And it ends with James being chased by a haunted doll. Boring anecdotes are interspersed with bizarre claims that seem rooted entirely in an
Oh, so you do know what the word boring means. Okay, that's good to know.
Speaking of high school, James states that in 1997 he got into the kind of music you don't hear as much on the radio, like Metallica. Metallica.
I'm about to agree with Dan here, whatever he's about to say.
Metallica in 1997 was one of the biggest bands in the world. Every weirdo nerd our age had a Metallica phase in the mid-90s. I had a Metallica phase in the mid-90s. Just to seal the absurdity, he name drops King Nothing, a top 10 single on the US Hot 100 from an album that was #1 in 18 countries in a decade where people still bought albums.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I mean, straight up, like that was so fucking, that was so just absent-minded for James to write something like that in his book. Bands you don't hear on the radio? Are you fucking serious? Metallica's Enter Sandman. When my mom would pick me up from junior high, they played Enter Sandman and like The Unforgiven. They played those, especially They played that song, and we're talking like 2001, 2002, 2003, like almost 10 years after Black Album came out. They were playing that song every 3 songs. They'd play fucking Enter Sandman. Like, what are you talking about? So I can't help but thinking, what, 97 or whatever, like, yes, what was it, Reload had come out, like a year before or maybe the year of. Yeah, they were playing those fucking, like, what a fucking dope. Makes me wonder if Bimmy even knows what a radio is.
You wanted to communicate the irony of a character in a film, someone with a self-mythology of outsider status while ultimately being no less in step with extremely mainstream tastes. You would drape the character in a Metallica t-shirt. An editor would have caught this immediately. The actual substance of the book is largely a chronological catalog of over 24 of James's home movies, many of which are sequels and outright remakes of his own prior movies. In a roundabout way, this actually seems to have been the original impetus behind writing the book, or at least one of the books that became this book. There's evidence scattered throughout that large chunks of the book are lightly adapted from contemporary documents. Though by evidence, I really mean James basically says it outright on page 150. Now the trauma has long faded, just as the VHS tapes have deteriorated. I never digitized or preserved them since the tapes have had no purpose to me outside of the college circle. This text is the final preservation, which I first wrote down while the incidents were still fresh in my mind. It was the catalyst that made me want to write a book in the first place. Sure, it took decades to finish and publish, but those decades have given me plenty to add. This is weird, right? The admission that this was the catalyst that made me want to write a book in the first place, and that catalyst was still an animating force in 2019, that you're just adding stuff to something you started 2 decades earlier? Is this autobiography legitimately a project he began in 2002, long before the days of his public success, and then just uncritically picked up 16 years later and just started tacking more onto, as though the SNCC sextology, getting suspended for an academic year, and launching one of the most influential YouTube channels ever, are all equally weighted events?
I mean, what he's saying in a very long-winded way, well, yeah, I mean, that's what the common the common internet opinion is that, yeah, he was writing a biography of his life, even though he was college age and hadn't even had any real life experience up until that point. And yeah, he pretty much just tacked on all the other shit that happened after the fact. See how quick it took me to make those points there, Dan? That took you like fucking forever to get to that last point. Yeah, equally weighted events. You know, James is a very unique kind of guy. We all pretty much know he's autistic, so in his life, it seemed like college really traumatized him. So yeah, probably on some level, that the negativity of the college years was probably equally as made as much of an impact as the positivity of the success of AVGN and whatever his Dick's Flicks things were.
Trauma he's referring to is an episode that consumes much of the middle of the book. Over 50 pages, about a sixth of the volume, are dedicated to James getting kicked out of university at the end of his first year due to a whole chain of events where he had these roommates who were trashing their
roomgoers, not roommates. He never says roommates. They're roomgoers.
Dorm, and he began taping them documentary style. So they began performing for the camera, escalating their behavior, and then at the end of the year, James took all of the tapes he had of them lighting trash on fire, putting holes in the walls, throwing things out of the windows, and cut it all together into...
All while someone saying, fuck this school, we're never gonna get caught, as James is filming like, yeah, it's badass. No one's ever going to find out about this as I tape all of it with our faces and voices clearly audible and visual.
A pseudo-documentary that he then sent copies of to the few other people involved, and one of these copies made its way to the dean, who expelled them.
Well, you see, the Infinite Corridor, unfortunately, that original tape's been erased to time, and he doesn't know what happened to it.
The entire episode isn't completely devoid of accountability. He does at times express some remorse for, well, mostly his inactions, but these statements are seemingly stapled on, with the vast majority of the event talked about as unfair accusations and guilt by association, a thing that was done to him. And he even speculates that the school was deliberately malicious in their timing, as the letters of expulsion didn't arrive until too late in the summer to appeal before registration. He insists throughout that he was just a bystander and doesn't really contend with the fact that if you point a camera at someone and they turn to the camera and go, "Hey, check this out," before jump kicking a light fixture until it explodes, you are a participant. But is all this an expression of...
I bet Dan Olson was the actual dean that kicked James and his friends out, because he seems like he has... obviously, he looks like and sounds like a college dean. Maybe a dean that just got fired, letting his beard grow out some. But yeah, I think that was James's dean, this guy right here. And that's why he's talking about it in depth so much right now.
Of a true James, or just bad writing? Is self-reflection absent because James doesn't experience it, or is it merely his weakness as a storyteller? Is it the lack of an editor to point out that he's ultimately just talking to himself, to tell him his emotions, however deeply felt, just aren't making it onto the page? The way he talks about unfinished home movies from when he was 12 is just really weird, because he treats them as completed objects that are of the same stuff as everything else. AVGN the movie.
Do you think Dan can do you think Dan can take the top of his pubic hair and tie it to the bottom of his beard and make some weird little land bridge between the bottom of his beard to the top of his long salt and pepper pubes? I bet you he could.
2014 and Crazy Carnage 1996, the sequel to Mighty Joe Rampage 1996, left unfinished when the camera battery died, are not strictly treated as equal, but it's insane that they're being compared at all. I keep coming back to James's camera setup. The longer I stared at it,
Chicago, fucking exactly,
the more the beast consumed me. Why was it? What's going on? Does he even know? Maybe if I built it myself, if I held it in my hand.
Oh, this is where it gets pretty autistic. He makes like 12 of these things.
I could understand. Is this the fruit of obsession? Is this where compulsion takes us? Are the damned and the damnable all doomed to wander to Home Depot? Building something kind of the same isn't enough. A half-assed cynical replica isn't enough. If you build it out of malice, you inject it full of all your own prejudices. It ends up bad for reasons you created. It tells you nothing. James's board is planed and square, so my board must be planed, squared, and sanded. Taken seriously, a good faith replica.
What does this guy do? Well, he's got a lot of like technology. Well, not technology, but like machinery in his workspace that looks like shit that the average person wouldn't have. Like, what does this guy do outside of making videos? I bet he makes those fucking sex horses that you get on that you can be strapped to. And I bet he sends them to Lindsay Ellis. He probably also makes those Chinese sex swings. That's what I think Dan does in his spare time. He makes fucking sex toys for S&M dungeons.
Not just a joke. This thing is very strange to build.
Sex horse, something like that. I don't know the exact name.
Physically confounding at times. 2 strips of scrap wood and 4 3-inch carpentry screws hold the fluid head in place by gripping the flange around the base, a thing only possible because of the odd profile of the Davison Sanford FM18 fluid head. I'll admit that by the time my replica was complete, it felt more secure than I'd assumed from photos, but simultaneously precarious. I didn't think it was at risk of spontaneity.
I feel like this guy barters when he goes out instead of paying with cash. Like he's like, good sir, instead of in lieu of financial funds at my availability, can I trade you a pound of spices from Lake Minnetonka and some tobacco, perhaps some hashish? Would that be a deal that you would feel good about? Or I don't know. I just feel like there's a... Anyway, shut up, Josh.
Spontaneous self-destruction, but still there's a looming sense that I shouldn't.
In lieu of legal tender, good sir, may I present you some of my finest grapeseed oil?
Push my luck. My screws had already started to bend during the tightening, so done was pretty much done. The thing I struggled with from the very beginning, the thing my brain chafed against like cheap khaki, is that the end goal here, a camera head mounted to a board, isn't some far-off concept, isn't some radical use case. It's a thing the thing is already made for, already designed to do. Thousands of commenters saw this build and knew immediately, intuitively, that it wasn't right. But plowing through the comments and the commentary of the assholish variety, seemingly none of them knew why. That the head already has a hole in the bottom for a bolt. You can take the lumber and just drill a hole in it. In the industry, it's called a low hat. Cardellini will sell you one made out of anodized aluminum for almost $600.
Hey, my drummer uses a hi-hat.
But those aren't very popular. Everybody knows you can get away with $10 of wood and bolts. It's so simple, so straightforward that I can't stop making them. I keep drilling holes in wood and bolting camera heads.
You see what I mean, guys? You see what I mean? The autism is confirmed in this moment.
To them. The thing that's confounding about it is that this is low budget filmmaking. Like, that's James's thing, right? Scrappy, low budget filmmaking, practical effects, all the movie magic that can be worked with styrofoam, hot glue, some plywood, and a drill. So why are his low budget rigs so bad?
Oh, cool. Another one of these. I gotta piss, and I don't want to miss a single second of this. So, hold on. Let's timestamp here. 44:55. Oh, I gotta pee so bad. Once it hits, man, it hits like a fucking flowing waterfall. All right. Be right back. All right. No, we're not starting that from the beginning. I'll take a hit, take a shit, then I'll spit on your tit. Okay. This is a beat, right?
Published a lot of corporate ideas about what genres are.
Oh, hold on. I don't want to miss a single droplet of this.
It's uncertain about what it is that I'm actually...
Wait, what are you doing? Listen to me, bitch.
But plowing through the comments and the commentary of...
Yeah, I know we got that part.
Just...
Uh-huh.
James's thing.
Yeah.
Video Game Nerd episodes for days now in a
Whatever, this is close enough to where we were.
tsunami of diarrhea and nostalgia for games I never played as a child. I find myself at times uncertain about what it is that I'm actually watching. Maybe some of the beauty of internet video is that it demolished a lot of corporate ideas about what genres are and what a show looks and sounds like. We now have so many things that never could have existed in a framework of network television where someone needed to describe their vision to a 50-year-old man in a suit who hasn't watched TV since he was 12 and convince him to pay for it. AVGN is one of those things. It is across time formulaic, but ultimately very loose with its structure and
Wrap it up.
identity. And the longer I think on it, the less I believe
Wrap
that
that
it's
shit
even a review show. I'm probably not the first person to notice this, and maybe I'm even late to the party, but it occurs to me now, as I psychologically wade hip deep through Buffalo turds, that AVGN is, at its heart, a skit show that uses the premise of video game reviews as little more than a framing device, and as such, there's scant allegiance to the games themselves. But even that's not entirely true, because that would suggest a level of consistency that doesn't exist. Really, it would seem that the show is both review and skit in whatever ratio James and his co-writers are compelled by at the time of writing, though it's unclear to what extent they are aware of that about themselves. The game serves as fodder for jokes and skits, and the videos are rarely a comprehensive overview of the subject because they just kinda work the material until they've got a video worth of stuff. It is what it needs to be in order to exist. The nerd was never a sincere expression of James's obsession.
Dude, he's even bored. He's even bored in his own fucking video, like in real fucking time. The video hasn't even been put out yet in this scene. He's got to go and edit it and all that shit, and he's already fucking bored in like mid like filming it. Like, holy fuck balls.
The nerd was always a character. The critiques are as authentic or performative as is convenient. Superficially, the membrane of performance makes a...
You know what's the easiest way to make a joke, especially if it's like toilet humor? You know what the easiest way to make that shit not funny is? Fucking explaining it on an intellectual level. Because if you have to do that, then it's probably not worth watching. Like, you either get Beavis and Butthead or you fucking don't. It's either an annoying show to you or you get what they're doing. And then the moment that you have to explain a fucking joke, that is the very moment that it becomes not fucking funny. It becomes sterile. It becomes clinical. It becomes fucking boring. This is why she left you, Dan. Because you'd pontificate and you'd mansplain with all your weird fucking camera fluid head holder things that you insisted on making 10 of.
AVGN useless as insight into James, but the hitch is that James just isn't a good enough writer to divest himself fully from the end product, to write organically in the voice and mind of the nerd. The way that James talks about wavelength, both in the book and in the standalone video on the subject as himself, are largely indistinguishable from the way that the nerd would talk about wavelength. Wavelength is long, it's boring.
Would you sit, and would anybody in the chat sit on Dan's shoulders with your crotch facing him, his mouth, and let him give you a blowjob as you sat on his shoulders for $2,000? Would you let him do that?
It's grating. It's abrasive. It doesn't make any sense. There's no story. They show you a dead body, but then nothing happens. It's just a picture of some waves on the wall. Is that why it's called wavelength? The length of time it takes to get to some waves? Why would they do this? What were they thinking?
Easy $2,000. Easy, baby. and on top of that, you're in a pool and he's shirtless and he's standing up in the shallow end. I don't know if that makes it better or worse, but there you go.
Feel a certain amount of kinship with James Rolfe. We're basically the same age. We both went to film school and we both
Did he just shave? God damn. He put a lot of fucking this video spanned a long period of time. I don't know which looks, I mean, I guess this is a more streamlined. It's like I don't have to look at all of his gray wispiness. Well, that's a little bit easier to look at, but now he looks like fucking Moby's homophobic brother.
ultimately found ourselves making videos about media for YouTube. We both have an enduring interest in the aesthetics of old media, be it VHS camcorders or vintage video games. And we both feel the pressure of creation, the sense that there's just never enough time to do everything that we want to get done. Better known as the angry video game nerd, James has this behind the scenes video that I can't stop thinking about. AVGN Behind the Scenes and Nerd Room Tour 2021. There's just so much going on with it. There's a light stand suspended.
Oh, now you'd accept the $2,000 offer now that he's shaved. Nice.
From the ceiling with craft wire. It's not all weird though.
Why is he doing that voice video manipulation glitch thing that Anthony Fantano used to do in all of his album review videos that he seemingly just stopped doing for some reason? Did you ever notice that about Needle Drop? He always did those little glitches in his old album reviews, and he's just completely stopped doing those now. They were really distracting and stupid. Like what are you trying to do? Like Max Headroom? Like are you being like a Max Headroom facsimile right now? But yeah. Anyway, Dan's doing some. Y'all, Dan's cooking right now, and I'm just gonna let him cook.
James has all his studio lights on the same power bar, so he can turn the whole setup on and off at the same time. A kind of obvious yet still clever trick that inspired me to rewire the lights that I have over my workbench. So I've got this idea. The video ends with.
Why is he doing that? What is the point of it? Unless you're just showing that you can do it. Like, oh, look at these cool little plugins I have. What the fuck, $50? Shit, man. Fuck me. All right, well, all the attention's going to this super chat. That's the biggest super chat I've ever gotten. Love your channel, but your take on music nostalgia was a little unfounded. I get you being tired of the hits. One song does not define a band. I have and listen to almost all Green Day and Panic at the Disco's vinyls. There's genuinely good songwriting there. Let me see. Song is not defined. Right. No, I've never said that a band's one song defines them, but society or millennials and Zoomers in specifically tend to, from my observations, they'll take a band's, one or two or three, creme de la creme songs that all happen to come out between the years of 2004 to 2007, if we're talking emo, and they just hyper focus on those songs, and they never really. I've asked these people who sing Mr. Brightside or I Write Sins Not Tragedies or Sugar We're Going Down, I've asked them about other songs by those bands, and they look at me like a deer in the headlights, like, I don't know, dude. I just like those songs. That's all I know. I was mainly making a video about those people, the normies, if you will, because to say like a millennial is an emo kid is kind of like it's a little redundant at this point, because that was such the cultural zeitgeist back during that time when we were, if you're around my age, when we were all growing up, like everybody was a fucking emo kid. Okay, so for these like older millennials or mid-tier millennials like myself, you'll see these little like preppy girls now, or women who are now like in their 30s with kids, being like, oh my god, I'm such a closeted emo kid. It's like, yeah, good job, Becky. You and all your little 15-year-old friends all grew up listening to these songs that were being played on the radio, and maybe you might even went to a local show every now and then, and you saw some other emo kids, and you all just kind of like talked. I mean, you know, there was the posers, and then there was the kids who really liked it. And I mean, I made that video for the posers. I want to highlight the posers to actual music fans like myself who maybe watch this channel. So that was kind of the point of that. I wasn't saying that a song defines a band unless they truly are a one-hit wonder. Then you kind of have to say like Jenny 8675329 by Tommy Two-Tone. That is his defining song. I mean, I've never met a singular Tommy Two-Tone fan out there who's like, nah, bro, Tommy Two-Tone's more than just that song, bro. He's got other great bangers out there that you gotta check out. All right, well, Lynx Venture has taken over the chat because he gave. I'm not a pay pig, but I'm the receiving end of money. So I saw Panic at Disco live and left during the encore because they played I Write Sins. I get it, but to dismiss these bands in their day for their talent was harsh. Emo Becky is funny again. Again, I wasn't really trying to be dismissive of them. It was more of the audience. It was more of the listener. I don't believe I mentioned the talent of any of these bands, either having talent or lacking talent. I was mainly literally addressing the fans and how the fans' grip on their teenage nostalgia hurts these bands. Case in point was Paramore. Or even the new My Chemical Romance song that they dropped back in 22, Foundations of Decay, and how these same kids or millennials that will go to these emo nights or these Vegas festivals, they won't support these bands and continue to support them when they release new shit. They literally only want to get that hit off of the nostalgic shit they listened to when they were teenagers, when life essentially was more simpler and a happier time for them. So that video was more an indictment on the audience than it was the bands themselves. I may not personally be a fan of that music, but like, hey, at least there was guitars and bass guitar and drums and, you know, real instruments hitting the top of the charts. I'll always support that shit. So anyway, thank you for that. Really appreciate it. Okay. Anyway, back to this steaming pile of bullshit.
James cataloging a litany of reasons why he doesn't have as much time for AVGN as he used to. In addition to this behind the scenes video, James has an autobiography, A Movie Making Nerd, which he self-published in 2022. These glimpses James allows into his private life have become the locus of an entire para-audience of hate watchers, Cinemassacre truthers, who have memeified and dissected them to truly bizarre levels of hostility.
All right, we're getting to the truthers, guys. Here we go. Here we go. Me as someone who said, I said like literally like maybe 3 or 4 critical things of the Cinemassacre truth, and I've been forever hated by them ever since. As someone who's done that, I know that Dan making a fucking video about this probably, well, I know it didn't win him favor because I was still fucking with that forum back then, and they trolled his ass pretty hard. I got another 5 from Lynx Venture. Fair, the new, the used is pretty cool, but fair. Right on, man. Yeah, I know they were on tour here, St. Augustine. Some of my friends went, so you know, good on them. All right, well, let's see here how Dan pisses off the CT, was it Cinemassacre Truth? Anyway. The Cinemassacre Truth Forum, fuck it. I tried to abbreviate, but my brain's too stupid.
An entitlement that I don't particularly care to fully unwind. It's the usual soup of in-jokes piled on in-jokes piled on in-jokes. Almost as compelling as Rolfe himself is this community that swirls around him, seemingly offended by his continuing existence, though they will absolutely take offense to that characterization and insist that they're not hateful, fatphobic misogynists, they're just too edgy for woke soy boys, and it is merely their unwavering commitment to free speech that compels them to allow the hateful, fatphobic misogynists to stick around. You know the song and dance. Thing is, though, that Cinemassacre broadly has provided them with a lot of red meat. Mike Matai, who handled moderation of the studio's social presence for years, is kinda an edgy dickhead himself who would pick fights, go on aimless banning sprees, and other misbehavior. He once posted a photo of a penis, not necessarily his penis, but certainly framed to imply that it was his penis, to his Twitter account to win a literal dick measuring contest with rowdy commenters. In the shame-soaked aftermath, he tried to scrub this event from history and, as the moderator of the Cinemassacre subreddit, went on a banning spree there, which led to the formation of the splinter sub, the Cinemassacre Truth. As production of AVGN the movie dragged on through 2013 and 2014, James contracted with multi-channel network Screenwave to manage more of the channel's backend. Now, okay, in the book, James mentions that he has not, in fact, made his millions, that during the time where AVGN was at its peak cultural relevance, their ability to monetize that success was pretty spotty. Their relationship with YouTube as a platform wasn't the best, and while they were able to be grandfathered into the now long defunct director program and retain their ability to post videos longer than 10 minutes, they weren't in the first or even second or even third wave of channels admitted to the partner program. Merchandising, the publication contract with game trailers, and various one-off contracts provided an income that made AVGN viable as a job, but James claims, and I'm inclined to believe, that this did not manifest as the kind of wealth drawn in by the likes of Smosh, Shane Dawson, and other early YouTube contemporaries. James is justifiably proud of AVGN the movie, a film that by all rights shouldn't exist, that should have fallen apart, that very well could have ruined the channel, ruined his finances for the rest of his life, ruined his marriage, and ruined his friendships. A lot of people helped make the movie, but very few championed it. AVGN the movie, for all...
Is that all he's going to say about Cinemassacre Truth? Because if that's all he's going to say, then I wanted to have my own little rebuttal there, but I want to make sure I let him have all his comments before I rebut his statement. He's seemingly talking about the movie again?
Its faults isn't the product of a miracle. It's the product of James Rolfe. And it nearly destroyed him.
Oh, that's a hideous angle. God. Look at all that crap. I mean, it's a fairly organized garage, but that shouldn't be on. That's not aesthetically pleasing. Yes, Mick Ultra is the calorie counters beer.
So I have this theory that in 2014, when the movie did not manifest greener pastures, when James realized that he kind of hated making movies at that scale and was loaded up on credit card debt from finishing the movie, someone at Screenwave said, "We can fix your monetization problems." Because what follows in 2015 through 2022 is just an absolute frenzy of content. Podcasts, clip compilations, panel shows, roundtables, vlogs, full
Okay, I guess that's all I was going to say about Cinemassacre Truth. What I have to say about that is, I mean, if you're anonymous, which everyone on there is, except if you're a brave enough soul to go in there and post your content on YouTube, and whether it gets shared or whatever, and then you join Cinemassacre Truth, and they all know who you are, like I did, like Frankie did, like, you know, a few other people did. Everyone else is anonymous on there, and it's like a guilty pleasure to just go in and make fun of shit that, especially when you used to like it, you see a quality decline, yet they keep pushing it out despite everybody, like anybody with common knowledge or common wisdom would know to stop doing it at that point, right? I mean, we've all grown up watching TV shows have their pilot, that's kind of rough, then it has their good middle period, and then it has its crappy period, and then it gets canceled. We had so many reference points by the time we saw AVGN. I don't care how old you were. You'd seen shows start and you saw them end. It just always fucking happened. You never saw a show start to suck, like, considerably bad, and they just kept it on the air for another 10 years. This internet age and this YouTube age was this weird new time when things could start to suck and go downhill significantly. And, you know, you're not answering to any stockholders. You're not answering to any corporation that's got the purse, you know, that's holding the bucks, that's keeping the show funded. You can just keep making crap in perpetuity, and that's what AVGN has become. It's been Flanderized. And yeah, well, Simpsons, I guess, is a perfect example of a show that sucked for a long time that they kept on TV. Aside from The Simpsons, it doesn't happen very often than that. There is some weird special example. They must pull some kind of rating still for them to be on this long. But, my point is that AVGN is, and now Dan at the end of the video will go on to say that James hasn't changed, we've changed. He's exactly the same, even though there's been a live stream I did a long time ago where we watched one of his recent episodes in 2024, and then I literally pulled up his Action 52 episode, and it was like a night and day difference between quality. But all of that notwithstanding, it's just fun to make fun of shit anonymously on the internet. I mean, I have an alt account that I'll jump on sometimes. If somebody's really, like, just their face is really pissing me off, I'll jump on my alt account and say the same troll-ass shit that people have said to me. Why? Because it's just kind of fun. You know, there's like a whole South Park episode where Stan's dad, Randy, would like, I think it was Randy, yeah, he would like get on YouTube and just troll people for fun after work to like relieve the stress of the day or whatever. It's like, I don't think any of these people are inherently, I mean, yeah, sure, some of them probably are, but like, I don't think a majority of the people on there are inherently like these transphobic, fatphobic, misogynist, whatever. I think they just go on there and it's a playground for them to revert back to how they were when they were in junior high and just have that stupid, politically incorrect space to be, for the most part, as outrageous as you want to be. And yeah, you know, it's not politically correct and it's not technically like right, but it be like that, and you know, you can just like roll with it and be like, well, if I'm someone who gets easily triggered by that content, maybe I shouldn't go onto that subreddit. I don't go onto that subreddit anymore because they fucking just shit all over me, and I could just do without that level of negativity in my life. But if you're someone who like is politically triggered by words that hurt your feels, then don't fucking go on there. I mean, it's, you know, it's like that's what you're signing up for. It's not going to be a measured discourse about, you know, well, James's quality has gone down quite a bit. Let's offer some constructive criticism on this subreddit just in case he sees it, he'll know how he can improve his brand. No, that's not fun. That's boring. Like this fucking video. This is what happens when you do a measured fucking response on a YouTube video. It's fucking boring. And apparently 2 million people disagree with me because everyone still fucking watched it. But like, goddamn, like, I'd much rather see a reactionary video than like this super fucking measured, well thought out, like, because it's like, I can make up my fucking mind myself. I don't need somebody to tell me how to feel about something. I want somebody's fucking reaction, which is another genre of videos that's super popular, is reaction videos. I don't watch those because I don't, you know, whatever, but like, I don't know. I'd rather somebody be like, this album fucking sucked and this is why, rather than, well, it's got its good points and its bad points and we're going to go through blah, blah, blah. Like, I'd rather see the first one, but that's just me.
In videos, basically every form of content possible that could either be offloaded entirely to an outside editor or would otherwise maximize efficiency. Stuff that takes an hour to record and 40 minutes to edit. Cinemassacre goes from publishing a little over 1 video per week in 2013 to publishing 5 videos a week in 2017. In order to facilitate this, a new cast of hosts appears very suddenly. Screenwave employees who are already on the...
Oh man, that's a dream team right there. The 4 homunculi. Man, can you imagine what that room smells like? Big Ryan fan was that Tony slices the movies in half. And then you got Lusty Justy, who was probably 100 pounds lighter in that shot. And then you got James doing the cuck face because Bapril was out of frame with the bulls.
Clock and don't have scheduling conflicts or other jobs that they would need to work around to do a podcast and 2 panel shows a week. People who are convenient. Cinemassacre through Screenwave became visibly extremely corporate extremely quickly. And remember, James doesn't see the channel as the angry video game nerd, he sees it as Cinemassacre, the production house. So while this transition made sense to him, it made less sense to his fans, since all of these secondary videos would show up in their subscriptions, not just AVGN videos.
Almost like naming your band and your YouTube channel, which are pretty much totally different from one another, the same name. Dances with Ghosts. You
see the channel has a panel show where James is only an occasional guest, the narrative of a corporate takeover, of James selling out, writes itself. But, like, none of this would matter if it were good. If the podcast is entertaining, no one's gonna care that Justin and Kieran and Ryan suddenly show up out of nowhere or that James isn't the main focus. But it's not good, because these dudes they bring in are a void of charisma with basically no on-screen chemistry, because the reason they're there is convenience.
Recently, I took the old website and I made a big document of every single...
I want you guys to stare at Ryan's face really quick while I go take another piss. That's right. Stare at his face. Look deep into the void. It'll stare back. Listen to my piss. Refreshing. Oh, God. Could any of you guys hear my urine as it hit the water? Alright, let's see here. Did Ryan transact? Okay, that's cool. No one's talking about my piss. Good. Alright, sweet. Cool.
Article that was on the old website and what YouTube video or it goes to, or whether that video is like lost and we would have to get it from the sources. So I have this like huge map and I gave it to Justin and Kieran and all of them, and they're going to start digging through that, or having someone dig through that and start uploading some of the old stuff, like the like all the...
So if these two were in orbit, though Big Ryan is big, Justin has a larger mass, and so though Big Ryan is big, he would still get pulled towards Justin. It's he would hit the Roche belt, which is basically what happens. So if the moon were to get too close to Earth, when you hit the Roche belt, the Earth's gravitational pull outweighs the moon's, and the moon actually starts getting sucked towards the Earth and getting pulled into like an egg until eventually it crumbles into pieces. This is why Big Ryan has to be this amount of distance is safe, because if he gets any closer, then he enters the Roche belt and gets sucked into Justin, which is why you don't see a lot of former employees from Screenwave anymore, and that's why he got kicked out of Rex Viper. Insurance-wise, it was a nightmare for James Rolfe to get too close to Justin, so that's a quick explanation of that.
Turtle Tuesdays and all of that stuff.
The goal,
Forgot about those.
because we're using all the WordPress stuff and stuff. The goal is to get Monster Madness on there fully and finalized.
Also, like, James just isn't very good at spontaneous.
Oh, wait a second. Was that... God damn it. I was just fat phobic, wasn't I? Fuck. I fell right into that trap, Dan Olson, you clever fucking bastard.
Conversation. He's not a strong podcast host, but he's the star of the show. He's the person people are tuning in for, which makes a chatty podcast format a really bad choice. It's a product showing the star of the show in the worst light possible. Then there's James'
Chicago only likes me when I'm edgy.
dad rock band Rex Viper, named after a joke character from the Big Rigs Over the Road Racing episode of AVGN. Rex Viper is so insubstantial a project that it would barely merit mentioning it if it weren't for the fact that James, and James alone, seems to take it really seriously and talks about it like it's important. The sum total of Rex Viper is 2 live performances and 4 music videos for parody songs that are just songs from 80s movies with the lyrics sometimes retooled to throw in video game references or the instrumentation altered to mix in game themes. Eye of the Tiger Electronics, Mighty Wings and Hadoukens, Nintendo Power of Love. I'm gonna be honest, I hate this entire genre. I am the last person to give it a fair shake, so I'm just gonna move on.
Based, Dan, based.
All of this is easy pickings for truthers. Whether it be the cringe or the cynicism, there's a lot here to make fun of. Truthers even have a name for all of it, the slob wave era. Get it? Because Justin Silverman is fat and Kieran Fallon has that heavy metal look going on.
Yeah, that's right. That's it's called a joke. Dan, I don't know if you've ever heard one or told one in your entire life, but it's what that's called.
Ultimately, though, no matter what the Cinemassacre truth might be accurate about, it's all just a vehicle for ableism, fat phobia, sexism, transphobia, and, what? They're Chan trolls. It's not that deep. They are, in fact, just haters. They have a particular hate boner for James's wife, April, for reasons that are complicated.
Oh, it's about to get good now, fellas.
But not complex. They'll frame it that James was dragged kicking and screaming from his basement because she wanted kids. They cast James as a henpecked husband whose career was derailed by a woman. This flies in the face of both everything James has ever said and also just observable reality. James and April were together before the first AVGN episode hit YouTube. There is no Garden of Eden for Eve to tarnish. April has been here the whole time. During the filming of AVGN the movie, she moved with James to LA for 6 months and took on the role of production manager. If the movie had one champion, it was James. If it had a second, it was April. But because he describes her as giving him an ultimatum about having kids, they are able to depict it as browbeating, vilifying April as a nagging shrew who uses their children as a chain to keep James from realizing his ambitions.
You think Dan really believes that, or he's just saying that? Again, Dan, I don't know if you ever heard a joke in your entire life, dude. They're picking at things that they know about James's life, and then they're doing this kind of just these almost fanficking. That was weird how I said that. They're doing a fanfic of James's downfall. Shit, we got one in my Discord that we do all the time. Well, the guy I unfortunately banned, and I kind of wish I didn't. He had all these great fan fictions about April and her bowls, and that's all I'm really gonna say about that. It gets a little too spicy after that, but it's just funny, dude. It's just funny to. I don't even remember what April fucking looks like. I couldn't even pick her out of a fucking crowd. I just know that she exists, and it's funny to think of her just yelling at James and just stomping on his balls, and I don't know. It's just funny. I think probably most of those. Well, I won't say most. Maybe half of those guys are married. I don't know, maybe less. But they've had experience with chicks probably. I don't think it's a bunch of nerdy incels. I think it's literally just for fun. I don't think anybody truly believes that April is the true fucking catalyst that like ruins AVGN or James's ambition. I think everybody pretty much accepts that James has ruined his own shit, and it's not the fault of his wife. And I mean, most people who are like actual fans already knew that like he was with his wife, before and during the classic years of AVGN or whatever. I don't know.
As though it is preposterous on its face that James might honestly prefer fatherhood to making videos for the internet. One time, James and Mike sat down to record a Let's Play, and James had somewhere he needed to be, to pick up his kids from swim lessons or something, which gave him a hard out of 5:40 if he was going to get there on time. 5:40 came and went. James started to visibly panic when he noticed the time and wound up leaving rather ungracefully before finishing the LP later in the evening.
Hearing it described that eloquently, the time past 5:40. James became visibly panicked. That sounds like I want to hear like a graphic novel on narrated by Dan Olson, completely serious, like not deadpan at all, just completely serious narrating, like April cucking James. That would be pretty funny.
Alone.
Let's break it.
All right. Well, anyway, that's it. We just ran out of time because I have to be done at 5:40 right now. And
so what's gonna happen
exactly
is
5:40.
Next time you see this, James is gonna beat this on his own.
I'll try
without me, because the way we record. So
yeah.
Thank you, Super Anthony.
Okay, just to make it clear, again, what happened was that we ran out of time.
Truthers have clung to 5:40 as a meme ever since. These are what James describes as comments of
Mike might have smashed April, but there's no way that James ever smashed Aaron.
An asshole-ish variety. And really, the thing with the 2021 behind-the-scenes video, the odd texture of the whole thing, isn't that it's partially a response to these comments, but that all of it is. That's the animating force behind it. That's the reason why it exists. It's not a behind-the-scenes room tour for the sake of easy content. It's an explanation, a defense. As a room tour, it's bad. James bounces from odd detail to odd detail, spends tremendous amounts.
Says the guy who's bounced between like 50 different fucking shots and stupid projectors and tape recorders, and now we're in your garage making shit, crafting things, and bro, your whole video you're bouncing around and doing a bunch of asinine shots. What are you talking about?
Lots of time outlining problems, and the whole of it is weird and a nearly incomprehensible level of honesty about.
If Mike Matei is the true daughter, if Mike Matei is the true father of James's kids, all I got to say is it's a shame that they weren't born boys. Heyo!
His bespoke inefficiencies, but all because it's a defense of Screenwave, a defense of his wife, a defense of his children, and a defense of his priorities in life.
So Screenwave hooked me up. So Screenwave set me up with a whole new server. Screenwave also helped me with my internet. Screenwave and I have been working to resolve it. And then I sent a rough edit to Screenwave, and they just did the rest of the post-production and effects.
So why doesn't James have enough time anymore? What's he spending his time doing if not making AVGN? I don't know, and I honestly don't particularly care. If AVGN has declined in some spiritual way, it's not because James isn't grinding away with burnout in...
Frankie, welcome back from that very long masturbation session. Jesus Christ, bro, that was like an hour and a half ago.
Producing 16-hour days. In watching through all 52 hours of nerd videos in reverse chronological order, I'm not even convinced that there is some calculable decline. Maybe this is to its detriment.
Really? Really? You couldn't measure any calculable decline watching them back in chronological order? It's, well, maybe don't do it in chronological order. Maybe just pick a new one and then jump to a really old one. That's a pretty... wide gap of quality right there.
But the show has always been spotty and kind of ragged at the edges, and it has remained incredibly consistent in that zone. Maybe the format is just dated. YouTube has left AVGN behind. Maybe the audience is just aging out. Maybe James does lack ambition, or he's just out of ideas. Hell, maybe it is his wife and kids getting in the way of the show, but here's my hot take on that. That's fine. The angry video game nerd is not a load-bearing pillar of reality. It's a YouTube sketch comedy. It doesn't need to exist. I do not know James Rolfe, but in this I'm confident. James Rolfe loves his wife and kids, and they are his top
I'm telling you, this guy does not. This guy uses the barter system when he goes out. He does not pay with legal tender. He barters with like a half pound of tobacco and some doubloons. Well, I guess that would be tender. Whatever. He gives them a horse, some grain, and some spices when he makes his purchases. Swear to God, the way this guy talks.
Priority. The best written parts of his autobiography by a substantial margin are the stories about the challenging births of his 2 daughters and how he discovered that he really, really enjoys being a father. His mistake was to share that fact with an audience too immature to comprehend it. No, not just too immature, an audience patently unwilling to comprehend it. Probably the most baffling mistake James has made is assume that his haters are here to be persuaded.
Do they want me to suffer?
Yeah, James, they kind of do. But still, like...
You know, I've been super critical of James Rolfe in the past. I've made a lot of videos on him. I've grifted my way to success by making fun of James Rolfe. But, you know, if he was to ever turn the ship around and magically, like, get his groove back somehow, I would be the first one to be like, yeah, that was a pretty good episode. You know, not gonna lie, that was pretty good. There have been bands that have been out in the desert for like decades, you know, that I've followed, where they just put out shit album after shit album, then somehow or another, you know, they come out with a fucking banger, and it's like, shit, they've made a comeback. But yeah, I mean, with that being said, I guess there would be some contingent of the James Massacre. The Cinemassacre audience, the Cinemassacre truth, whatever, that's just going to hate whatever he puts out from this moment on. Because I think there's people out there who literally, they kind of like, it's kind of like a big part of like their entertainment value and their entertainment consumption is just hating on James Rolfe. And that's why whenever he's slow to put out content, you'll see just people grasping at straw, just grasping for anything they can to throw into some form and just keep the fire going, because people just, you know, they need the fresh memes. That's one thing that his book gave people, was just a whole batch of new memes. Anyway, got off track here. Who gives a fuck anyway? It's this video that we're watching.
Mistakes have been made. Like, what's the point of having a company to handle all this stuff if James is going to make a video where he tries to do his own PR response to his haters by showing off his janky DIY rigging? Why employ editors if they're going to leave in the footage where he has a humiliating panic attack?
Well, anyway,
part of what is so transfixing in all of this is this parade of contradictions, that from the outside there are these very visible, very public decisions being made, but those decisions aren't producing the intended results. Even without access to their actual back end, I can say that massively increasing the channel output absolutely improved revenue. Even if the podcasts and whatnot underperformed, there's just so many of them. It is on net hundreds of millions of views. But what good is that if it damages the brand?
And here we have another angle. Jesus Christ. Another cinematic thing going on here. I mean, this might be cool for like a music video, but for just like a fucking video essay on a guy that has been talked about fucking ad nauseum at this point. Like, I don't know Dan Olson.
Point of doing damage control at all if it just raises a million more questions.
Okay.
In a spiritual sense, James has trapped himself on the couch.
Not the teal and tangerine side view. God.
Access to the capital resources needed for larger projects is dwindling, and his sensibilities as a filmmaker are too myopic to appeal to an audience that isn't humoring him, telling him that Rex Viper is cute and they're just glad he's having fun. In a more literal sense, James has trapped himself on the couch because the room is just too small. I had heard this before, but I find that just saying it or looking at frame grabs doesn't do justice to the realities of physical space. So I did the thing any normal person would do and built a 1/12 scale diorama of the nerd room.
Now, a lot of people have said this is probably the coolest, like literally like the coolest thing about this video is that he fucking very, very autistically built a 1/12 scale of James's nerd room, or his new one anyway.
He needs to haphazardly hang things from the ceiling and build Franken low hats because when he moved house in 2016, he had Kyle build a replica of the nerd basement in the new garage so that the...
Dude, how long? Look at each one of those little fucking Super Nintendo cartridges. Like, how much time? This dude put so much fucking time into this fucking video. And I mean, it paid off. I think he got fairly compensated given the ad revenue off of 2 million views. Good Lord. And they didn't happen over the span of 10 years. Like, they happened over the span of like 6 months or so. But Jesus Christ, how do you even, like, what material do you even like use to make those little plastic SNES cartridges? I mean, the Genesis cases would be easier to make, I would imagine. I mean, could you 3D print that shit? I don't know.
New basement could be dedicated to a fake video rental store. But Kyle, whose day job is renovating houses, built the room as an actual room, not as a set with accommodation for the needs of recording. And for reasons I can only speculate on, the set is only 8 feet wide. I don't know, maybe the rest of the garage is a workshop or they still needed to fit a car in there. I really, truly don't know. But it would feel cramped just as a rec room. But as a film set, it is.
One day April left the car, so there's room for a car in that garage. One day April left one of the cars running while the garage door was closed when James was trying to film an episode. And it was only when he forgot to plug something in did he hear that the car was running. That's when he knew that there was trouble in their marriage.
Claustrophobic. There's nowhere for stands to go. And okay, now every film set is crowded with junk. Every film set is a jungle of stands and tripods and apple boxes and lens boxes and lights on standby. But this tightens things down to a point where you just can't get in and out without stepping over everything. It becomes a game of parkour just to change a battery. And when you're working mostly alone, that gets frustrating really fast. And when you're frustrated, you get impulsive. And those impulses lead to half-measure solutions. And those half-measure solutions accumulate into a whole network of bespoke inefficiencies that you just live with because the process of unraveling them feels just so big. It was in the finishing touches of James's low hat that it began to make sense. Screwing on a bubble level did something to it, transformed it. It was still janky, it was still inexplicable, but I suddenly cared for it. No longer saw it as just a heap of scraps stapled together for a bit. It's still a bad solution, it still looks visibly like a bad solution, but it felt personal. I could imagine myself as James, self-conceptualizing as not an indie filmmaker.
I bet you this guy has made a 1/12 scale of Lindsay Ellis's bedroom as well. That's just the vibes I'm getting right now, how he's talking about this janky camera stand that he made that he screwed a level or two.
But as a backyard filmmaker, a kid with no resources but what he can scrounge out of the garage, and this felt far more homogenous with that than with any other James I had considered so far. In 2010, James posted an autobiographical documentary called The Dragon in My Dreams. James tells a story of a recurring nightmare he had as a child, being borne down on by this massive dragon, an image that he connects to a dragon-shaped water feature in a neighborhood park his parents took him to as a toddler. For the video, James, with friend Matt behind the camera, visits the park on the day it just so happens that workers are removing the dragon from the spot where it sat for 30-some-odd years. In voiceover, he reflects on his childhood, on the imagery of the dragon, on the then upcoming milestone of turning 30, and holding back tears, he takes a knee beneath the dragon and avows himself.
Did he really get teary-eyed at this fucking thing? Dude, my God. I kind of feel bad for him, honestly. Like that guy's got like emotional. He's emotionally disturbed on some level. Good Lord.
To the path of the filmmaker, while the dude who was working the jackhammer stands just off screen having a smoke while these two guys do their thing. It's all kind of cringe, a truly elemental example.
Thank you for acknowledging that for once that something James did was cringe, Dan. Jesus Christ. It's not all just the Cinemassacre truthers being meanies. Like, this guy does deserve some level of criticism, goddammit.
Example of pretentious, self-important film school pap, but whatever. Let he who is without cringe throw the first stone. The conclusion of the video is muddled, just kind of wanders between a few different ideas, but the intent is clear. It's a reflection on just how far James has come and an aspiration of just how far he has to go. A phase of his life coming to an end just as conclusively as this dragon being torn out and replaced. That metaphor crumbles to bitter ash when you realize that the dragon didn't really go anywhere. It was displaced all of 30 feet, from sitting inside the water fountain to standing beside the gate of Fox Chase Playground. In a way, the dragon in my dreams is itself a brutal metaphor for James's career. James is a calcified dragon whose films have barely changed between high school and middle age, uprooted from VHS and transplanted 30 feet away in HD. I think about James every day now, every time I have to step over something that's in a bad position, every time I need to get something off a shelf but there's stands or tripods or boxes in the way. Every stack of books, every lens without a home, every camera bag left on the couch for weeks on end, every clamp, every cable, every stray roll of tape has become an accusing presence in my life, a bespoke inefficiency that I can...
Oh, he finally said bespoke. The thing that everyone's been saying in the chat all damn time long. I feel like Dan got like very deeply affected by James Rolfe. It sounds like he's developed like a severe case of OCD from merely observing James's day-to-day behavior.
Stare directly at and yet never fully escape. What if the problem is me? James hasn't moved. I've moved. AVGN is what it's always been. The truthers claiming that the show is bad now are getting spooked by their own shadows. The show is what it's always been.
No, it's not what it's always been, you stupid fucktard. Watch an actual episode from the classic years. It's a lot... His acting is better. The jokes are, I guess, fun. Yeah, I mean, they're fun. I think just his acting being better is really the only thing that's necessary to make it a better product overall. His acting has gotten shitty and forced. The anger's not real. It was real when he was younger. I don't know. It was, I mean, yeah, there's a certain amount of like, yeah, you kind of hear a joke enough times. Oh, shitload of fuck. And, you know, but I've literally done a one-to-one comparison on a live stream watching one of his new episodes from this year. And then we watched like 2 or 3 from the past, and I laughed way more watching the old episodes, and not just for nostalgia reasons. I forgot a lot of those old jokes until watching them again. So it's I don't know. That whole argument that he's making is just completely fucking stupid.
It isn't bad now, but good in the past. You're just getting older. You're not seeing a titan of YouTube fallen from grace. You're seeing a man as immovable in his interests and habits as Atlas. But So what? Would it even matter either way? We don't have the James Rolfe. We have a crass homunculus of James constructed
Homunculus!
out of photons and
Yes, homunculus. His beard smells like homunculus.
wavelengths delivered to us through our screens, a codex of symbols we can interpret but never fully understand. And in that void between the real and the perceived impose meaning compelled by what we'll never know.
Yeah.
Today we're going back. We're going flashback. Released in 1991, this game was available for most consoles available.
Now Dan's displaying his versatility as a content maker for all these years. He is now going to do a one-to-one recreation of an AVGN episode because he is just as capable of doing it as Bames is, and he's about to show that off right now.
At the time, plus PC, but all I've got is the Super Nintendo version, so that's what we're playing. This was part of a trend of so-called cinematic platformers. Many of these games are considered classics because of the way they elevated games as an art form, took it seriously, and confronted audiences with complex, sober stories. They weren't just reflex-based arcade games where you hop on Goombas to rescue a princess. They told complex stories like films. So, will flash back to light and astound, or will it put the ass back in classic? Let's find out. It opens with a pretty impressive 3D cutscene that was clearly intended for PC because the Super Nintendo is really struggling.
God, this guy's so versatile. He could just easily do AVGN himself if he wanted to, because it's just as, I feel like I'm watching an episode of Angry Video Game Nerd right now.
Still, many Super ports at the time would have replaced these with a static slideshow, so the fact they even tried to keep it is impressive. Okay, so your character crash lands in the jungle with no guidance on who you are or what you're doing here. Well, turns out that's intended. Your character has amnesia and needs to figure out why he crash landed in the jungle. The only thing you know is your name is Conrad. The first thing you notice is that the animations are very smooth and lifelike, because like Prince of Persia, the developers rotoscoped actual footage of actors walking and jumping. This does lend the game a certain weight. When you drop down off a ledge with your pistol drawn and ice tube mutants, it feels super badass. Yeah, take that, you mutant fucks. The second thing you notice is that the controls are ass. Every time you push a button on the controller, Conrad takes one giant step forward or jumps.
I like whenever GameSack takes a piss out of Metal Jesus. That's always fucking funny.
Or rolls.
GameSack's sense of humor is like, it kind of never gets old to me because it's just such clear dad vibes and they don't give a fuck. Or now it's just the one guy, but like they're so fucking awkward and it's endearing in its own way. I don't know. I like GameSack is based.
Or draws his gun, and you need to wait for the whole animation to finish before you can do anything else. And that'd be fine, but the game still has tons of reflex-based obstacles that require very precise timing. One of the very first challenges you're given is jumping over this pit, but to do it you need to start running on the previous screen and then enter the command to jump before the new screen has even finished loading, or you just run off the ledge into the pit below and then need to climb back out, waiting a short eternity for Conrad to go through his lifelike cinematic animation every time. Just like in cinema, Conrad doesn't have a life meter on screen. Instead, he has a personal shield that can absorb a certain number of
Okay, if he was trying to do like an AVGN right now, there would have been like at least 6 or 7 jokes that he would have James would have thrown in there at this point. Now, whether they're funny jokes or not, it depends on what era you catch him in, I guess.
shots. Okay, so that's health by a different name. So to check your health, you need to open your inventory and cycle through everything you're carrying until you get to your shield module, where it'll tell you how many charges you have left. Oh yeah, that's cinematic. Cinematic is dog farts. Yeah, it turns out that in video games, cinematic is a code word for shit. Oh, the controls suck ass? Just tell players it's cinematic. The story gives you no clues about where to go or what to do. It's cinema. You eventually get to a giant pit that this
Don't worry guys, we got 3 minutes left and then we're done.
shady fuck tells you to jump into in order to get to New Washington. At least he warns you that you'll die if you jump without an anti-gravity belt, which he offers to sell you for 600 credits. Okay, so you need to go find some credits. Fortunately, there's lots of them hidden around different areas of the jungle. But here's the thing, if you go out of your way to get all of them, thinking they'll be useful later, you're wrong. He doesn't just take 600 credits, he takes all your credits. He robs you. Cinematic. Anyway, after you pay this lying fuck everything you have, Connor jumps into the pit and enters level 2.
That actually did kind of slightly sound like a James Rolfe cadence in line that would have been read.
There's nowhere to go. There's just 3 screens. There's nothing but an elevator down into a hole. Sure, you can recharge your shields down there in the hole, but it's not going to get you anywhere. It's cinema. You can jump up to this ledge, but it doesn't go anywhere either. There's this ledge you can see, but it's out of reach.
What point is he trying to make at this point, though? Like, honestly, like, what's the point of doing all this? Like, I know that he was impressed with his little, like, replica that he made, but, like, what was the point of him trying to try to copy a AVGN episode? I don't get what the point. Maybe I'll get it at the end as a big kind of moment. I don't know.
You just can't jump high enough to reach it and pull yourself out. This is your life now. You're trapped here on these 3 screens until you quit. Anyway, what you need to do to progress is confront your insecurities and accept that you're not a filmmaker either. What did you say?
Okay, I'm muting that because I don't know if that's... I like how he's running, like, at the end of that Childish Gambino song, This Is America, where it's, like, kind of that exact same framing there, where he's just, like, running in the dark with, like, his eyes wide open. Like, he totally ripped that off from the end of that This Is America video. And knowing him being a BreadTuber, I know he's seen that music video, and I know he stole that scene from that music video. Well, that's how it ends. Okay. Oh, no, still hear the theme song. I don't know if that's some kind of copyrighted thing. I made the mistake of playing that Rage Against the Machine video at the end of last video, and bitch literally got blocked. So I had to, like, go in through YouTube's back end and, like, have it automatically deleted out of there or whatever for it to even show back up again. Wow, man. Fat running. Yeah. All right. Well, I think it's 11:20 over here in the States. In the East Coast in whatever, Florida. Yeah. Wow. That took forever. And it was just about as uninteresting as it was the first time. If not more so, because I stopped it. And last time I just let it roll. Hey, man, this is what y'all voted for by a large margin. This won out over... We could have fucking seen the likes of Suburban Nights. We could have seen Linkara's movie. But no, you guys want to watch the fucking Homunculus. And that's what we fucking did. And some people voted for nothing. Thanks, Metal Dad. Thanks for not participating in the YouTube community. So yeah, I don't think I have. I have to take a royal piss, and I think I'm gonna quit while I'm ahead here because this video is probably already longer than 2 hours. So yeah. So yeah, that was that. It was yeah. I mean, I already said everything it was, so there's really no point in me reiterating. Hit a like if you'd like. Hit subscribe. Hit reply, and please don't cry. What's the next video I should review? Ring the bell as well, whatever Anthony Fantano says at the end of his videos. I'm just gonna start stealing other YouTubers' sayings that they say. You can cry if you want. Yeah, I'm gonna clean up all this crap around me, all my empties, and I don't know. I just got to piss right now. That's all I know. But yes, until next time, be looking out for my actually edited video. I'll go ahead and spoil it now since it's towards the end anyway. My next video is going to be, did P. Diddy actually have any good songs? Yeah, I don't talk about his controversy all that much. I'm just going into the music, baby. Did he have any good songs? It really made me sit and think. That's what the next video is going to be, and I feel like it's going to be a lot more editing to go. So hopefully that'll be out like Tuesday, maybe. But yeah, anyway, until next time, have a good rest of your night, guys. See ya.